8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Are the newspapers getting you down?
My wife didn't divorce me that month.
Struggling to separate the wheat from the chaff?
I know that it's a bit of a circus at the best of times.
Well, don't worry, Headliners has got you covered. We'll take the burden of reading the day's news, and if we get depressed, who cares? It's an occupational hazard, frankly. That's Headliners on GB News from 11 p.m. till midnight, and the following morning, 5 till 6 a.m. on GB News, the comedy channel. Nah, just kidding. Britain's news channel.
Hello, good afternoon and welcome to GB News. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua, and for the next few hours, me and my panel will be taking on some of the big topics hitting the headlines right now. This show is all about opinion. It's mine, it's theirs, and of course it's yours. We'll be debating, discussing, and at times we will disagree, but no one will be cancelled. So joining me for the next few hours, GB News' senior political commentator Nigel Nelson, and also broadcaster and journalist Danny Kelly. Coming up in the show, the Tory party conference has kicked off today, but which Tory candidate gets your vote? We've got Robert Jenrick, Kemi Badenoch, James Cleverly and Tom Tugendhat. They're battling it out to lead the party, and I've got a poll up right now on X asking you that question. Which Tory candidate gets your vote? If it's none of the above, let me know why. Then, in my niggle, Rosie Duffield is fed up with the Labour Party, but many on the left seem to be excusing their behaviour.
Have they broken any rules? No. Have they broken any laws? No. Have they unlawfully prorogued Parliament? No. Have they lied to the House of Commons and been found to have done so by a committee of their own peers?
But James O'Brien on LBC, although he's already starting to eat his words and backtrack as Ali Gate starts to unravel. Could all of this signal the beginning of the end for Sir Keir Starmer? Then, in the interview, Andrew Eborn joins me to shed some light on his colourful career. Who is the real Andrew Eborn? And in clickbait... What happens next? Before we get started, let's get your latest news with Sophia Wensler.
Nana, thank you. Good afternoon. It's just gone 3 o'clock. I'm Sophia Wensler with your headlines. The Conservative Party conference is getting underway in Birmingham today, and it's kicking off already with Tory leadership hopeful Robert Jenrick criticising leadership rival Kemi Badenoch for saying maternity pay is excessive. Earlier, former Prime Minister Rishi Sunak and his wife arrived, but they're expected to leave later on today. It will be his last conference as leader. Earlier on GB News today, our deputy political editor, Tom Harwood, spoke to all the Tory leadership candidates. He quizzed Robert Jenrick on whether he could support any policy that the Labour government could table.
I've already said that the NHS needs reform. And if Wes Streeting and Keir Starmer come forward with genuine reforms in the national interest that improve productivity so that we actually talk about outputs, not just inputs, I would support them. I've already said that the NHS needs reform, and if Wes Streeting and Keir Starmer come forward with genuine reforms in the national interest that improve productivity so that we actually talk about outputs, not just inputs, I would support them.
And when pressed on why the Conservatives suffered such a historic loss at the general election, leadership candidate James Cleverly had this to say.
You've got to recognise that the British people kicked us out for a reason. And they kicked us out because of the gulf between what we said and what we did. So we need to promise less, but deliver on everything we promise.
Meanwhile, Tom Tugendhat was asked why MPs should back him, considering he's the only candidate left in the race who hasn't held a full cabinet position.
I'm not going to hold against them their lack of experience on the front line in combat. I'm not going to hold against them their lack of experience in serious operational theatres like Iraq and Afghanistan. I'm not going to hold against them their record of the past few years. My job is to set forward my record and demonstrate what I can offer this country.
And last but not least, Kemi Badenoch was asked if she thought the leadership contest has been a clean race.
I think that whenever people do things that are, about other candidates, people can see. So I'm just focused on my own campaign. It's for the party authorities to decide. I'm very happy to correct the record, but it shows that he's not actually reading or listening to what I'm saying.
Now, in other news, David Lammy has spoken to the Lebanese Prime Minister following a series of Israeli airstrikes on Beirut. The Foreign Secretary says they agreed that an immediate ceasefire is required to bring an end to the bloodshed. It comes after the terrorist group Hezbollah confirmed their leader, Hassan Nasrallah, was killed in an airstrike in southern Lebanon. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says Israel settled the score with Nasrallah's death. Now, back in the UK, Canterbury MP Rosie Duffield has resigned the Labour whip, accusing the Prime Minister of hypocrisy and pursuing cruel and unnecessary policies. In a resignation letter, Ms Duffield attacked Sir Keir Starmer's decision to keep the two-child benefit cap and means test winter fuel payments and condemned his handling of the outcry over gifts given to him and other senior Labour figures. The Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster, Pat McFadden, told GB News he is disappointed by the resignation.
Well, I think when you read Rosie's resignation letter, you can see that these are the frustrations and disagreements of somebody who's held them for quite a long time. There's no secret about that. I think Rosie's been quite disaffected with the Labour leader, with the Labour Party for quite a while. So I'm disappointed to see her go because I like Rosie and I think she's got a lot to offer politics. But ultimately, I'm not surprised.
Meanwhile, almost 10 million households have been warned they risk overpaying for their energy if they don't send meter readings to their supplier before the price rise takes effect on the 1st of October. The average household energy bill is set to increase by £149 a year from this Tuesday as Ofgem increases its price cap. And finally, Philip Schofield says the utter betrayal by his television colleagues has made him never want to be a daytime presenter ever again. The 62-year-old is set to appear on Channel 5's Castaway, marking his first TV appearance since leaving ITV in May of 2023, following an admission of an unwise but not illegal affair with a younger male colleague. Those are the latest GB News headlines. Now it's back to Nana.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to news alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thank you, Sophia. It's fast approaching 7 minutes after 3 o'clock. This is GB News. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. Coming up, I'll be going live to the Conservative Party conference as the 4 candidates are vying for the unappealing job of replacing Rishi Sunak as leader. We'll have all the latest from Birmingham. Now, which will lead us to the great British debate this hour? And I'm asking which Tory candidate gets your vote? Well, there's a poll up on X right now asking you that very question. And if none of them, simply let us know. You can tell us your preference. So that's for the Great British Debate this hour. And then we'll head back to Israel to speak to Uri Geller, who will give us the latest and his thoughts on the situation, which is rapidly changing in the Middle East. All that and more. Post your comments, send me your thoughts, gbnews.com/your say. Right, so the Conservative Party conference kicks off today, the most unimportant one in about 15 years probably, and all the candidates have been making their pitches on the GB News stage this morning, including Tom Tugendhat, who was asked why MPs should back him, considering he's the only candidate left in the race who hasn't held a full cabinet position.
I'm not going to hold against them their lack of experience on the front line in combat. I'm not going to hold against them their lack of experience in serious operational theatres like Iraq and Afghanistan. I'm not going to hold against them their record of the past few years. My job is to set forward my record and demonstrate what I can offer this country.
So when pressed on why the Conservatives suffered such a historic loss at the general election, leadership candidate James Cleverly had this to say.
You've got to recognise that the British people kicked us out for a reason. And they kicked us out because of the gulf between what we said and what we did. So we need to promise less but deliver on everything we promise.
I think it was a lot more than that, James. And earlier on today, our Deputy Political Editor Tom Harwood spoke to all the Tory leadership candidates, and he quizzed Robert Jenrick on whether he could support any policy at the Labour government that the Labour government could table.
I've already said that the NHS needs reform. And if Wes Streeting and Keir Starmer come forward with genuine reforms in the national interest that improve productivity so that we actually talk about outputs, not just inputs, I would support them.
Last but not least, Kemi Badenoch was asked whether she thought if the leadership contest had been a clean race.
I think that whenever people do things that are, about other candidates, people can see. So I'm just focused on my own campaign. It's for the party authorities to decide. I'm very happy to correct the record, but it shows that he's not actually reading or listening to what I'm saying.
Right, so let's have a chat with GBNews political editor Christopher Hope. Christopher, so you're there at the conference. The candidates are all lining up and getting themselves ready to potentially lead the Conservative Party. Is there much positivity and energy? Because a lot of people watching or hearing about it really aren't interested in the Conservative Party at all.
Hi, Nana. Yeah, well, welcome to Birmingham. This is where the Tory Party conference is happening. The scale of it is quite big, really, because most of the people who are coming here on the corporate side have booked their space thinking this will be the last conference for the Tory government. In fact, the early election in July, that was earlier than expected, meant that this is now a party of opposition when you've got 4 candidates fighting to be leader. I bumped into Rishi Sunak earlier today. He seemed quite relieved to be out the fray slightly. He's met with some members here today, and he's off tonight, leaving a space open for these candidates. And tomorrow I'll be doing a Q&A with 2 candidates, 2 till 4, and then 2 the following day on Tuesday, 2 till 4, with the members on the main conference stage, and that should be carried, or bits of it, by GB News. So it's all happening, and the party itself, the MPs, 120 or so Tory MPs, will select the final 2 to go to the membership next Wednesday, and then it's over to the members, and there might be debates, and so it goes on. So, yeah, we are getting to the white heat of that debate. And with me now is a supporter of Kemi Badenoch, who is one of the favourites to be the next Tory leader, Andrew Griffith. Welcome to GB News.
Thanks, Chris. Always good to be here.
Great to have you here. There's a big row breaking this afternoon about your leader, your candidate, Kemi Badenoch. She says that statutory maternity pay is excessive. She says we're taking from one group of people and giving to another. This is, in my view, excessive. Businesses are closing. They're not staying in the UK. And the burden of regulation is too high. She told that to Times Radio earlier. Is she right? Is it too excessive? Or will it be, under the Labour government, even more excessive?
Well, what she's right about is that we need to have a debate about these things. One of the reasons I'm supporting Kemi is that ability to tell honest truths, difficult truths sometimes, and it is a reality that you have to get the right balance. And I think that was all she was really pointing to.
Yep.
You've got to get the right balance between the business that drives the prosperity, that gives people the opportunity, and indeed funds things like maternity pay and so many other benefits, and making sure that our business world remains competitive. I came from that business.
Of course.
So all of these things individually, good. I don't think Kemi's against them, and I don't think that's what she was saying. But in aggregate, we've just got to make sure that we don't get to a position in this country where our businesses can't compete internationally.
Yeah, her rival of the leadership says, Robert Jenrick, doesn't agree with Kemi on this one. On maternity pay is among the lowest in the OECD. Tom Tugendhat has also had a go at the comments. Is it a misstep? I mean, surely working mums, or even mums full stop, are really important to your party.
No, look, Kemi's not saying she's against maternity pay. She's saying on many fronts, it's the sort of discussion that you've got to have to make sure that balance is struck in the right place. So if you're a mum at home, don't worry. That's not what Kemi is saying. That, a little bit of a confected row, I can understand that. Everyone's out there, trying to talk their own book. I think Kemi's got that honesty. The fact we're talking about what she's saying shows that, when she speaks, it really cuts through. And that's a really important part of how the Conservative Party, connects with people and gets back to reminding people what we stand for. A lot of people said to me on the doorstep, look, amongst many other reasons, one of the reasons is I just don't know what you as a Conservative Party stand for anymore. We've got to have that process of renewal, and then we've got to be able to clearly articulate that to people.
And why Kemi then? Why Kemi? Why not Tom Tugendhat or Robert Jenrick?
I mean, all the candidates are colleagues, all who've got their own strengths. I think that
we need that process of renewal. It's tough being in government, and in government invariably what I'd call the boat picks up plenty of barnacles, things that actually, if you stand back now, was that really the right priority, and were we getting on with delivering what really mattered to Conservative supporters? Big process of renewal, and you do that best in the most, you build the firmest foundations and in the most resilient way that's going to carry through us the next political cycle, which is why it's called, Kemi's campaign is called Renewal 2030. It's not just about one person, it's about a whole process of renewal.
2030 is 2 years into the next Labour government if they win the election.
Well, it's a point, when we talk about decades, right? A decade of renewal, a decade when we can get the British economy back growing, unleashing the potential of what is this great country of ours. And there will be a big job of work. I mean, we can see already some of the damage that the Labour government's doing, coming out with unfunded promises. They have no idea how much some of the things they're saying will cost, even when they're saying they need to make cuts. They're not sure whether they're real cuts or whether
we'll see more in the budget from Labour. Let's talk about your party. We'll see more from them shortly. Boris Johnson's in the news with his memoir. Should he have a role in the party under the new leader?
Well, I haven't read his memoir like you.
It's in the papers
keen to see that. But look, with 121 of us in Parliament, everybody who's got a useful voice to contribute to the renewal of our nation and to tearing apart this government. We can't leave Rosie Duffield to tear this government down on her own. It needs all of us in the broader Conservative family. Of course, that includes former Prime Ministers, but it also includes all of the activists, the people on the doorsteps, in the bars up and down the country. They, as much as anyone, are the voice of Conservatives.
So that's a yes to Boris coming back?
It's a yes to everybody, Chris.
Right, Frank, OK, good. In terms of the ending of this leadership campaign, the leaders announced on the 2nd of November, 2 or 3 days after this really important budget, which will set the tone for the 5-year Labour government. Don't you want to have a leader in place by October 30th?
Look, I'm not sure about the semantics of that. It's always a tough gig for whoever is leader of the opposition. I mean, how many of Keir Starmer's, opposition speeches to the budget do you really remember really got breakthrough? What is really important is that as that budget inevitably unwinds, as that budget reveals, they're talking about breaking the fiscal rules,
there's a lot of things,
rewriting the accounting rules, effectively PFIing the whole country if they add more off-balance sheet borrowing. As that unfolds, which won't be in hours, but it could be in days and weeks and months, at that point we need to have the right leader. It's not just about the right leader, it's also about fielding the right bench, and all of us as Conservatives uniting behind whoever she or he is, and really taking the fire to the opposition. We do not have long, given what an absolute horlicks this government is making, how corrupt it appears already that they are in terms of the donations. We do not have that long to get a leader in place and get ready for government again.
Who should your party be facing? Is it the lost Reform UK voters or lost Lib Dem voters in the blue wall?
It's about all of those groups.
I know it is, but who's a priority?
Well, I actually think it's about being the best version of ourselves. If we're honest about the last election, many people put their ballot in the anyone but Conservatives box. And many people stayed at home as well, Chris. So it wasn't just about Reform or Lib Dems.
Stayed at home.
A lot of people stayed at home who were natural Conservative supporters, often for the very first time. It was painful on the doorsteps. So we need to remind them, which the government is doing a very good job of why socialism fails, why we believe in the moral virtue of people who work hard and try and provide for themselves. But then we need to get our own act together so we are a credible opposition and then a credible government.
Andrew Griffiths, thank you. Andrew Griffiths being the shadow science and technology spokesman, Nana.
Now, Andrew did mention Rosie Duffield and they'll accept anybody. Are there any rumours that Rosie Duffield may move to across the floor to the Conservative Party? Is there a possibility of that happening?
Well, it's a very good question. I mean, there were the rumours that she was in talks with the Tories about 3 or 4 years ago when she was first falling out with the Labour leadership led by Sir Keir Starmer, and that came to nothing. And of course, she fought for the Labour Party in the July election, and she does say in her letter that she wants to come back to the Labour Party when it's reformed itself, maybe under a different leader. So as things stand, no, but there was chatter about that she was quite close no to some senior Tory women because of the stand she was taking on women in this the battle over the trans debate. So it's not a silly question, but she says she wants to stick with or come back to Labour when it's ready. But I think that idea is not completely crazy, Nana, if you take my meaning.
Yeah, I hear. Well, we shall watch this space. Christopher Hope, thank you very much. That's Christopher Hope. He's there in Birmingham at the Tory party conference. Well, you're with me. I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News. We're live on TV, online, and on digital radio. Coming up, we'll head to Israel and speak to Uri Geller, who will give us the latest, his thoughts on the situation that is unfolding in the Middle East and what it could mean for the rest of the world. But next, it's time for the Great British Debate this hour. And I'm asking, which Tory candidate, if any, gets your vote? This is GB News.
The king of breakfast TV is back. That's right. Britain's favourite TV host, Eamon Holmes, returns to Britain's hottest breakfast programme. Breakfast every day from 6 a.m. Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Earlier this week, Olympic swimmer Adam Peaty finally proposed to his girlfriend, because I've been waiting for this, the daughter of Gordon Ramsay, with a gorgeous yellow diamond ring.
Yeah, so the demand for coloured diamonds in the last 10 years has soared by, guess how much, 77% between 2010 and 2019. Joining us now to tell us more about some of the hottest trends in the diamond world is dealer to the stars, Neil Dutson. Good morning, Neil.
Morning, Ben.
And I've got one of your exemplary examples. Look at this bad boy.
So
What's this one?
That's a very rare Muso Colombian emerald. And it's alpine green translucent, so it's a really stunning
See if
colour.
we get a close-up.
So, yeah, so pretty impressive.
Can I be very crude and ask how much this is worth?
So value is £200,000.
How much, sorry?
£200,000. Now, the reason is its rarity. It's minor oiling. It's very, very, very pretty. The two diamonds on the side are D-colour, flawless diamonds, just to accentuate the setting.
Neil, how did you get into diamonds?
I studied diamonds in Antwerp. So Antwerp used to be the diamond capital of the world, really. Yeah. 85% of the world's diamonds go through Antwerp, or used to. And now Dubai has taken over. And yeah, I just went to a school there. I learnt about diamonds, and I just didn't want to be seen off in the future.
Neil, I'm very concerned I'm going to drop 200 grand's worth of diamonds into my cup of tea, so can I give that back to you?
Absolutely.
But I can hold one if you like.
Oh, well, I've got
Neil.
a lovely one here.
Thank you.
So this is a fancy vivid yellow. It's 8 carats.
This is my dream ring, just so you know, for this hand. This would be
Is it big
amazing.
enough?
So what would I call this? A yellow?
So that's a natural fancy vivid yellow diamond. Value £300,000. So,
it fits
depends
like
where you're buying it from.
If it's like a glove, Neil, maybe it's a sign. It's meant to be mine.
It's definitely a sign, yeah.
GB News, the People's Channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
It's just coming up to 23 minutes after 3 o'clock. If you just tuned in, welcome. We are Britain's news channel. I'm Nana Akua, and we are live on TV, online, and on digital radio. And it's time now for the Great British Debate this hour. And I'm asking, which Tory candidate, if any, gets your vote? Now, the candidates are James Cleverly, we've got Robert Jenrick, Tom Tugendhat and Kemi Badenoch. Some people may feel they're all very uninspiring, but they are vying for the unappealing job of replacing Rishi Sunak as Conservative leader and leading their diminished 121 MPs in opposition to Sir Keir Starmer's government. What do you think? So for the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking which Tory candidate gets your vote and why. Send me your thoughts, post your comments at gbnews.com/your say. Joining me now, GB News political commentator Nigel Nelson, also broadcaster and journalist Danny Kelly. Finally, he got here in the end. No, nobody knows. knows. Nobody knows that you were late.
Nobody knows, and I thought it was really early.
Yeah,
he
tried to blame the producer as well, which I thought was interesting.
Throw me under the bus.
Don't worry. I was going to say the bus would just...
Oh!
I think you'd probably win.
Thank you. A speed hump.
Right, now I'm going to start with you. Nigel Nelson, this is obviously the Tory party. Do you feel there's a bit of energy in the Tory party? And if you were to pick one that might be scary for the Labour Party, which one would it be?
Well, I'm not a Tory member, as you can, as I'm sure you're not surprised to actually know, and I don't like any of them. So each has things I dislike about. James Cleverly wants to bring back Rwanda. Don't like that idea very much. You've got Tom Tugendhat and Robert Jenrick, who say they'd leave the European Court of Human Rights. I don't like that. Kemi Badenoch just says weird things.
Really? That's not fair. You've got to qualify that. What has she said that's weird?
OK, well, I think we're going to talk a bit about her later, about a sort of culture war idea. But she does things like, at one point she was saying she didn't think we had to leave the ECHR, and now she seems to be saying, well, maybe we do. It's all a bit
sort of vague. That's somebody changing their mind. I thought you might bring up the McDonald's thing.
Well, I could throw that. I could throw that in too. But anyway, in answer to your question, if it is the best of a bad bunch, I doubt whoever it is will be there by the election. There will be at least one other leadership contest before then, probably two. I think I would go for Tom Tugendhat.
We could probably say the same about Keir Starmer. He's been, more and more...
I think my socialist friend to my left should have more confidence in Great Britain being able to leave the ECHR and copy and paste the best bits of it. We're a fabulous country. Just because we leave the ECHR doesn't, I would suggest, mean that people are going to die or be killed or be treated less well than they are already. I think we're capable of leaving the ECHR and copying and pasting the best bits. That's just a personal opinion.
But it takes us out of international law and makes us an international pariah.
Well, I don't think it does. I think that's a scare tactic that people who are afraid of leaving the ECHR will say that it makes us look like a poor relation on the world stage. I don't think it would. Where's the evidence? Has any political leader said if you leave...
If you look at membership of the European Convention on Human Rights, I mean, the two countries that have left it are Russia for invading Ukraine and Belarus.
So what?
So, well, I'd rather not be put into the same category as those two countries.
Yes, but they have left it for completely different reasons as to why we may want to leave it, and that would be to get the flights off the ground and
we
take
would be
people
leaving
to
it on the
Rwanda.
basis the same way that if we argue about immigration, about leaving the Refugee Convention, we'd be leaving it because we don't like that part of international law. And the point I'm making is that if we're part of the world community, Britain has to actually go along with international law, even the bits that we don't like.
I think we can be part of the world community and separate ourselves from that legislation, personally.
Well, we would certainly be breaking away from certainly a bit of that world community.
Of course. I think we're always going to be part of the world's, if you like, top countries and elite, whether we're in it or not. I don't think we'd be an international pariah, but that's where you and I disagree. Yeah. I like Badenoch. Okay. I really do. And I think she's got a lot of courage. I think she's not frightened to say what she feels, and she says things that a lot of people sort of sympathise and empathise with, but maybe are a little bit too cautious to actually say. I know that we're going to discuss the diversity thing later on the show, and I'm really keen to hear other views on that. So she would be my list. And I'm not a Conservative member either now, it's just like you. But I think that she would be a strong rival to Keir Starmer at the dispatch box. I really do.
Robert Jenrick, he is the front runner right now. A lot of people thinking that he would be the one. And he seems to be, he has the most votes at the moment. Surely he seems to be a better bet.
If he has the most votes, then he's going to get the ticket, isn't it?
Do you think the British public actually care, though, to be honest?
Yes, I do. I think the British public, and I tell you what, the Rosie Duffield, who's just stepped down, I think this is what I was praying for. I'm not a big fan of calling for by-elections when people sort of fall out and have the whip removed, but I would love there to be a by-election because I don't think Labour would win. I think in the first, however many days Labour have been in power, I think this would be a reality check for Starmer if there was a by-election and Labour weren't to win. because I don't think they would.
But it's interesting. I mean, the Labour Party are doing almost what the Tories did to themselves, but at the very beginning, Nigel. I mean, are you not seeing this? What are your views on what's happening with the Labour Party?
Well, I mean, the £32,000 worth of gifts that we now know that Keir Starmer got, that is definitely a misstep. I'm not worried about the hospitality so much. I think that's a totally different thing.
Why?
Well, simply because I think that senior politicians should get out and about, talk to people.
Yeah, but it's the hypocrisy of it, isn't it? It's not so much... And actually, I am slightly... I mean, you've got to get to a point where if you're doing it every week, that's not hospitality. You're feeding your thing. So I think there is a difference to going to a football every week.
It's a transient... Yes, it is a transient thing. And also, the trouble about the hospitality thing is it's very hard to draw the line. So if a Prime Minister goes to a reception, does he have to refuse the glass of wine or the canapé?
That's silly, though, because it's part...
Well, exactly. That's why you can't draw the line on that.
No, you can, because he's doing something specifically linked with his job to be a politician. Going to Arsenal and watching the football, what's that got to do?
I think for
what's that got...
Well, I think for a Prime Minister...
Are you honestly going to justify?
Yeah, being out and about, yes, but what I don't justify...
Not to go to the football.
I don't see that taking clothes and expensive glasses has anything to do with his job as Prime Minister. That's where I would draw the line, and I don't think any MP should accept expensive gifts. There's no reason that they need it.
Exactly, it's gifting, isn't it? To people who have their hands on power.
I agree with Nige. You know, why are they being given these expensive gifts? Somebody wants something out of them, whether they want to curry favour, ingratiate themselves. I think the most damaging thing about all of these gifts are his wife's clothes. I'm not overly fussed about his tailored suits, because the guy is eventually going to be on the world stage. So I understand...
No, but he's very rich. It's not that he...
No, you're right. The most damaging thing are the glasses. Now, it's true. And I thought it was one pair of £2,250 glasses. It's not. It's actually multiple pairs of glasses. Now, it's OK to wear a Savile Row suit, but you don't need somebody to give you money to buy a £200 pair of glasses. Well, Nigel's got a nice set of gigs on his face.
And all paid for by me.
And I bet you they were around about 150 knicker, 200 knicker.
A bit more than that, but anyway.
OK, but 250 knicker, maybe.
Yeah, but
How much money have you got? This is going... It's like a bidding war, this is, isn't it? The generation game, you've got to guess the price.
I feel like I'm back on Bid Up TV all those years ago.
But that's my point. You know, having a suit is one thing, but you can buy your own glasses.
Well, you can buy your own glasses, you can buy your wife's dresses, and if
he's a millionaire.
You'll be paid £167,000 a year. Most people don't get that kind of salary. And he's also a millionaire. He's got loads of properties, got income from properties. He does not need anyone to buy him anything at all. I think it's utterly disgraceful. And it's sheer hypocrisy when the Labour Party sat on a plinth of integrity.
That's right.
Hardly.
They're doing things differently.
Well, listen, we'll be talking about them later. But if you've just tuned in, welcome. 31 minutes after 3 o'clock, you're with me. I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News. We are live on TV, online and on digital radio. Coming up, we will head to Israel. We'll get the latest from Uri Geller. But first, let's get an update with your news with Sophia Wensler.
Nana, thank you. Good afternoon. It's 3:32. These are your headlines. The Conservative Party conference is getting underway in Birmingham today, and it's kicking off already with Tory leadership hopeful Robert Jenrick criticising leadership rival Kemi Badenoch for saying maternity pay is excessive. Leadership hopefuls James Cleverly, Robert Jenrick, Tom Tugendhat and Kemi Badenoch will all be making their case to be the next leader of the party. Former Prime Minister Rishi Sunak and his wife arrived last night but are expected to leave later on today. It will be his last conference as leader. Now, in other news, David Lammy has spoken to the Lebanese Prime Minister following a series of Israeli airstrikes on Beirut. The Foreign Secretary says they agreed that an immediate ceasefire is required to bring an end to the bloodshed. It comes after the terrorist group Hezbollah confirmed their leader, Hassan Nasrallah, was killed in an airstrike in southern Lebanon. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says Israel settled the score with Nasrallah's death. Israel also says 20 other senior Hezbollah figures have been killed in the attack. Now, Canterbury MP Rosie Duffield has resigned the Labour whip, accusing the Prime Minister of hypocrisy and pursuing cruel and unnecessary policies. In a resignation letter, Ms Duffield attacked Sir Keir Starmer's decision to keep the two-child benefit cap and means test winter fuel payments, and condemned his handling of the outcry over gifts given to him and other senior Labour figures. And finally, SpaceX has launched its mission to bring back 2 astronauts who have been stranded on the International Space Station.
3, 2, 1, ignition, full power, and liftoff.
The Dragon capsule, which has 2 empty seats for Butch Wilmore and Sonny Williams, lifted off from Cape Canaveral last night. The pair were only meant to be in space for 8 days, but after a fault was found on their return vehicle, the new Boeing Starliner, it returned to Earth empty as a precaution, leaving them stranded for almost 4 months. The new team hope to bring them back in February of next year. Those are the latest GB News headlines. More in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Good afternoon, welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. We've got an east-west split in the weather today, but it's going to be turning increasingly unsettled with heavy spells of rain and some strong winds. And this is all to do with an area of low pressure out towards the west. We have a squeeze in those isobars as well, indicating some strong winds, and we do have a Met Office wind warning in force for gusts of 50 to 60 miles per hour across parts of Wales and the southwest of England, accompanied by some heavy spells of rainfall. Further towards the north into Scotland and Northern Ireland, generally seeing a largely cloudy night to start Monday morning, but a mild start with generally lows of 10 or 11 degrees. So a damp start to Monday morning. We've got outbreaks of heavy rain, and we also have a rain warning that comes into force across much of the southern parts of England and into Wales. That rain continues to push into parts of the Midlands and northern eastern parts of England as well. Cloudier skies to start across parts of Northern Ireland with outbreaks of rain here. Across parts of Scotland, though, we may see some brightness, but on the whole, it's still quite a cloudy picture with some spots of rain. So through Monday morning, that rain continues to push its way north and eastwards, lingers for a time across northern parts of Wales into North Midlands and into Yorkshire. So we could see some further disruption here with possible flooding as well. Towards the south of that, turning drier with some bright skies developing, and across parts of Scotland as well. We may hold on to some sunshine, but on the whole, it's a largely cloudy day. So through Monday evening, that rain continues across much of northern parts of England, really holding on across parts of Lincolnshire as well. But as we go through Tuesday, Wednesday and Thursday, it should be turning drier and also brighter, highs of 18.
Are the newspapers getting you down?
My wife didn't divorce me that month.
Struggling to separate the wheat from the chaff?
I know that it's a bit of a circus at the best of times.
Well, don't worry, Headliners has got you covered. We'll take the burden of reading the day's news, and if we get depressed, who cares? It's an occupational hazard, frankly. That's Headliners on GB News from 11 p.m. till midnight, and the following morning, 5 till 6 a.m. on GB News, the comedy channel. Nah, just kidding. Britain's news channel.
Mark Dolan tonight is your weekend dose of news, debate and entertainment.
This sounds like a wild conspiracy theory.
Don't miss My Big Opinion, Mark Meets, and My Take at 10.
Democracy is a funny old thing.
And we don't do boring, not on my watch. I just won't have it.
Let's go and get another glass of that bubbly. You've earned it.
That's Mark Dolan tonight, Saturday and Sunday, 9 to 11, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome, 37 minutes after 3 o'clock. If you've just tuned in, this is GB News. We are Britain's news channel. I'm Nana Akua. Don't forget as well, download the GB News app. It is completely free. You can check out all the programmes on that app in real time and also in your own time. But now to the killing of Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah following an airstrike by Israeli forces. And here is how one journalist reacted to the news upon confirmation of his death.
Psychiatrists or people who actually read body language, they could tell you that
out of control.
Marwa, so sorry to interrupt. We do now have official confirmation from the Hezbollah group of the death of Hassan Nasrallah. What's your response, please? I'm so sorry. Let's end the interview there.
So for those on radio, the lady put her hand to the camera and then started going, and then it was about to burst into tears, and then she switched off her connection so they couldn't see that she was very upset about this. Well, joining me now, Mr. Fire and performer Uri Geller. Uri, welcome to the programme. Really good to talk to you. Did you get a chance to have a look at that clip and see the reaction of that lady?
Yeah, listen, Nana, I'm not sorry for that lady. Look, first of all, I'm happy to be back on your show today because we were on yesterday. Look, this is important, I would like to respond to what one of your guests said after my appearance yesterday. He said to stop what's happening will involve putting pressure on Israel. He was actually suggesting Israel has gone too far. Too far? Nana, in my view, Israel has not gone far enough. And I'm saying that as a man of peace, I am a man of peace, as someone who hates war, but Nana, just like in World War II, sometimes you have no choice. Britain had no choice but to fight the Nazis. Ukraine has no choice but to fight Russia. And Israel has no choice but to fight all the terror groups waging war on it right now. As we speak, missiles are flying in. I can see it on my mobile phone. Everyone should remember Israel did not start this war. Next week, it will be 1 year since we were attacked out of the blue, Nana, by Hamas. And the very next day, Hezbollah in the north joined in without provocation. I would also like to answer all those critics who say Israel has only made matters worse by killing Nasrallah. Nana, come on. The truth is exactly the opposite. Hezbollah was already at war with Israel. Hezbollah had already fired more than 8,000 rockets at Israel. Hezbollah has already said it would escalate its attack on Israel. It's like saying, don't kill Hitler because you will only make the Nazis angry. Nana, it is illogical. Look, let me show you something. I showed this picture a few times. So we have killed the head of Hamas, and we have killed the head of Hezbollah. You don't have to be Uri Geller to predict who is next. Nana, I'm talking about the butcher of Iran, Ayatollah Khamenei. Israel has him in its sights. He has been rushed to secure location. They're hiding him. But Israel, and this is a revelation for all of you GB viewers, Israel knows exactly where he is. We know where he sleeps, where he eats. We know when he even brushes his teeth. And by the way, I'll bet he's too scared these days to even use an electric toothbrush. Trust me, I know what I'm saying. To finalize today's interview, look, Nana, Israel's enemies do not have a good record of dying peacefully in their sleep. I send you all love, peace, 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 and do come to the Holy Land, to Israel, and enjoy the time here. I love you all.
Oh, we love you too, Uri. You stay safe. Thank you so much. It's really a pleasure to talk to you. That is Uri Geller. Those are his thoughts on the war that is happening right now with Israel. Right, so next it's time for the Great British Debate this hour. And I'm asking, should the West stop telling Israel what to do?
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
True crime is everywhere.
Yep, next weekend, CrimeCon UK takes place in London, And joining us now to tell us more about that event and the true crime phenomena is former detective Stephen. How do you pronounce your surname? Keogh. Sorry, Stephen.
That's all right.
I should have checked you before.
No worries.
And Nancy, and again, Nancy, what's your surname?
Bourne.
Bourne, thank you. I'm showing my ignorance there, but thank you both for joining us. So, Stephen, you're a former top cop. Hope you don't mind me describing you as that. At CrimeCon and other events like that, do you get into sort of the semantics of the investigations and, you know, how, for example, how I was watching something the other night where somebody was unfortunately murdered, but you saw the crime scene investigators trying to work out from which side the person was attacked from. Did the knife come from the left-hand side or the right-hand side? Is it all that kind of stuff?
So for me, everything I've done since I've left the police is about sharing that knowledge of investigations, because if you watch TV, they get it wrong a lot. So what we try and do, I'm not the only police officer there, there's experts, so forensic scientists, psychologists, all from that investigative world. Just trying to get across, well, actually, this is how it's really done. This is what we do, not what you're going to see on telly. And I think that's really important. So for me personally, coming along to CrimeCon, I just look at the list of people that are there, honestly, and I'm proud to be associated with them. There are some fascinating people there. People who've really fought for justice for their children. People who are campaigning for victims, for survivors. So it's an event that. When you look at the name, you might think, oh, they're just going to sit there talking about serial killers and what they got up to. Couldn't be further than the truth. It's really about what goes on, how it impacts the victims, how the investigations are carried out. It's educational as much as anything.
GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
This is Britain's newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
It's just coming up to 46 minutes after 3 o'clock. If you've just tuned in, where have you been? You missed the first part of the show, but it's fine. You've come in early now and you're here now. I'm Nana Akua. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. And I'm asking, should the West stop telling Israel what to do? Now, following the death of Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah and continued airstrikes in Beirut, Western nations, including the UK, have called on an immediate ceasefire in Lebanon over concerns of escalation. Now, Israel would say that they are doing what is needed to defend themselves. So what do you think? Are we just putting our nose in somewhere where actually we don't have the full context of the scale of what is going on there? We're sitting nicely in our homes coming up with this narrative because it seems like the right thing to say. What do you think? Should we just butt out? So for the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, should the West stop telling Israel what to do? Well, joining me now is GB News senior political commentator Nigel Nelson and also broadcaster and journalist Danny Kelly. Danny Kelly, what do you think?
Well, I don't think... It doesn't matter, because Netanyahu just ignores everyone anyway. It doesn't really matter. You know, you can keep telling him, requesting, advising, pleading. It really doesn't matter. I think it's important that there is a global dialogue about this, because escalation in the Middle East is always just a little bit away, depending on what happens. Incredibly significant, killing the leader of the Hezbollah terrorist group, and they are prescribed terrorists. So,
they are.
So that's something that if
drug dealers, everything.
Yeah, so that's something that you should only think is a positive thing. But he'll be replaced. In fact, I was just reading online during one of the intervals earlier that Israel have now whacked the guy who they think was going to step into the breach. So they've actually got him already before he replaces this.
But did you take his point that, you know, just because, you know, there's a Hitler, you know, we got rid of Hitler, we didn't think, oh, well, get rid of him, somebody will take his place and there's no point sort of thing, which is a lot of people...
I don't think I think that was a bit of a false equivalence with Hitler.
Why?
Well, because I think Hitler was in charge of one country, and there wasn't a religious element to what Hitler was doing. In the Arab world, there's something that glues them all together, and it's the religion.
The point he's making is that when there's a bad man leading something, so if you do equate it to Hitler, then you don't. The excuse for not getting rid of that person isn't, oh well, we're no point doing that because another one will come in the place, so there's no point. The point of getting rid of a bad leader is to hopefully improve the prognosis, which happened when we got rid of Hitler. Let's come to you, Nigel Nelson.
Yeah, I mean, I think, first of all, yes, we should be telling Israel what they should and shouldn't do. That's the job of the international community, and calling for a ceasefire to stop escalation is the right thing to do. As Danny says, Netanyahu won't listen anyway. He'll completely ignore it and carry on doing whatever he wants to do. The reason I think that we have a stake in this is that we do have skin in the game, in the sense that at the moment the biggest danger is Iran will be drawn into this war, and if that happens, the US is likely to be drawn into it too, and if the US is drawn into it, so are we. So there is a danger that we could all become embroiled in another major Middle East war.
But what about the narrative that seems to be coming this way, that everyone seems to be telling Israel what to do, but nobody seems to be that bothered about speaking to Hezbollah or Hamas or the Houthis, everything beginning with H at the moment? Why is the narrative and the energy and the pressure all on Israel, when if that is the case from what you said, there should be some serious pressure from the Western communities actually putting pressure on those groups? Why is that not happening?
Well, it is, because...
It's not really, is it?
Well, we don't have any... As Danny said, that Hezbollah is a proscribed terrorist organisation. We have no easy routes of communication with them. All that is done through the Middle East. So, for instance, that Hamas are being pressured to release the hostages and will try and get a ceasefire in Gaza. That's happening. We're not directly involved, but we have got people who are talking to them through the Middle East to see if they can agree. And you've got Egypt in that case as the kind of neutral country hosting those talks.
But we talked about this the other week. The narrative is that Israel, for example, David Lammy has stopped 30 of the licences for Israel.
Yeah.
That's, whilst Hamas are still, obviously being supplied by Iran, who doesn't subscribe to international law. And if that was to continue, Israel would end up with no weapons, and we would simply be leaving them open to be mauled by these terror groups. It doesn't make any sense to me.
Israel would have a real problem if America stopped supplying weapons, because they supply 70% of Israel's arms. We supply, I think, less than 1%. So what we did was symbolic rather than would cause any great damage. However, I mean, the reason we did it is because, as I think there's a theme running through this, but we were obeying international law.
But a lot of people say, no, that's not true. And David Lammy, he's only just stepped into the fray, and I don't think that what he's doing makes any sense at all.
You raised a really interesting point. There's diplomatic dialogue on a global stage with Israel, but there's nothing towards Hamas or Hezbollah. Well, the reason being is that you can't diplomatically resolve the situation with Iran and Hezbollah, because they just want to wipe Israel off the face of planet Earth. That is their end game. So you can't, with diplomacy, you could almost say, OK, well, look, let's agree a two-state solution, and hopefully that will placate that side of the West Bank and the Gaza Strip, and then that could resolve that. But you've got Iran, who just want to wipe Israel off the face of the earth.
Well, they did try, didn't they?
Yeah, so and there's a religious element to all of this, because you're dealing with people who tell us they're not afraid of dying.
Well, you see, that's the thing. So a lot of people thinking that the West should actually back out of this and, continue to supply Israel, and Israel should carry on doing what they're doing. And yes, we would like a diplomatic solution, but the bottom line is, if we might want that, and there's a lot of pro-Palestine protesters calling for a ceasefire, then they should tell Hamas to stop firing the rockets.
No, I agree.
Hand back the hostages.
I mean, the irony
all
of this...
those things, if they did this, the war would be over pretty quickly.
Well, I mean, the irony is, as Yuri just said, that since October the 7th, Hezbollah has fired 8,000 missiles into Israel. If Hezbollah stopped firing missiles...
Well, that'd be the end.
And stopped the fact that 80,000 Israelis have had to move home, they're in sort of internal exile now because of that. If Hamas stopped doing it, then there would be an awful lot of pressure on Israel to call the ceasefire. But that just isn't going to happen. So at the moment, the diplomatic efforts have got to be with both sides coming to an agreement, and that's not very likely. Ultimately, it's that two-state solution you were talking about, but even there, it's a very difficult one to get to.
That doesn't resolve the Iranian position, though.
No, it doesn't.
Iran's not that bothered about the two states.
No.
Iran just wants to wipe off the planet, Israel and the Jews who live in Israel.
That's absolutely right. That as far as Israel's concerned, their constant fear is that Iran will attack them.
Well, listen, some people have been getting in touch. Cameron says Uri Geller was fantastic. I loved that. A bit of fun and a lot of truth. Oliver says, I totally agree with Uri. A lot of love coming in from Uri for Uri today. Then Lisa's talking about Keir Starmer. The man's estate estimate of glasses is £150. He got to be joking. My last one cost £800. I think that was you.
What, for a pair of glasses?
Yeah.
She's got money to burn, then.
No, she hasn't. But what she's saying is that your estimate of £150 was totally unrealistic. And
it's not unrealistic. You can order a set of glasses online for about £80. All they need is the prescription.
And then add that onto it, that's more than £150. Once you've got the prescription...
During the next advert break, I'm going to price up a pair of glasses for the viewer.
All right, listen, Lisa Bates there. Danny is going to price up a pair of glasses for you, so let's see if you can find a pair for £150. But it must also include the prescription.
Of course.
Eye test and everything.
And
like
it's going to have the anti-reflection coating on it as well for £150.
Didn't see the conversation going this way.
No, neither did I. Yes, so anti-reflection coating and everything else. There you go. Well, listen, stay with me next. My niggle on Rosie Duffield's decision to quit the Labour Party. Oh, dear, Keir. Now, then, let's get an update with where they post your comments. Keep them coming. gbnews.com/your say.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good afternoon, welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. We've got an east-west split in the weather today, but it's going to be turning increasingly unsettled with heavy spells of rain and some strong winds. And this is all to do with an area of low pressure out towards the west. We have a squeeze in those isobars as well, indicating some strong winds, and we do have a Met Office wind warning in force for gusts of 50 to 60 miles per hour across parts of Wales and the southwest of England, accompanied by some heavy spells of rainfall. Further towards the north into Scotland and Northern Ireland, generally seeing a largely cloudy night to start Monday morning, but a mild start with generally lows of 10 or 11 degrees. So a damp start to Monday morning. We've got outbreaks of heavy rain, and we also have a rain warning that comes into force across much of the southern parts of England and into Wales. That rain continues to push into parts of the Midlands and northern eastern parts of England as well. Cloudier skies to start across parts of Northern Ireland with outbreaks of rain here. Across parts of Scotland, though, we may see some brightness, but on the whole, it's still quite a cloudy picture with some spots of rain. So through Monday morning, that rain continues to push its way north and eastwards, lingers for a time across northern parts of Wales, into North Midlands and into Yorkshire. So we could see some further disruption here with possible flooding as well. Towards the south of that, turning drier with some bright skies developing, and across parts of Scotland as well. We may hold on to some sunshine, but on the whole, it's a largely cloudy day. So through Monday evening, that rain continues across much of northern parts of England, really holding on across parts of Lincolnshire as well. But as we go through Tuesday, Wednesday and Thursday, it should be turning drier and also brighter, highs of 18.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
There's still luck.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Mark Dolan tonight is your weekend dose of news, debate and entertainment.
This sounds like a wild conspiracy theory.
Don't miss My Big Opinion, Mark Meets, and My Take at 10.
Democracy is a funny old thing.
And we don't do boring, not on my watch. I just won't have it.
Let's go and get another glass of that bubbly. You've earned it.
That's Mark Dolan tonight, Saturday and Sunday, 9 to 11, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Are the newspapers getting you down?
My wife didn't divorce me that month.
Struggling to separate the wheat from the chaff?
I know that it's a bit of a circus at the best of times.
Well, don't worry. Headliners has got you covered. We'll take the burden of reading the day's news, and if we get depressed, who cares? It's an occupational hazard, frankly. That's Headliners on GB News from 11 p.m. till midnight, and the following morning, 5 till 6 a.m. on GB News, the comedy channel. Nah, just kidding. Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, good afternoon and welcome to GB News. We are live on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua. And for the next 2 hours, me and my panel will be taking on some of the big topics hitting the headlines right now. This show is all about opinion. It's mine, it's theirs, and of course it's yours. We'll be debating, discussing, and at times we will disagree, but no one will be cancelled. So joining me today, it's GB News senior political commentator Nigel Nelson and also broadcaster and journalist Danny Kelly. Coming up, the Tory party conference has kicked off today, but which Tory candidate gets your vote? Robert Jenrick, Kemi Badenoch, James Cleverly or Tom Tugendhat battling it out to lead the party. So I've got a poll up on X asking you that very question. Which Tory candidate gets your vote? If it's none of the above, let us know why. Then, in my niggle, that's on the way next. Rosie Duffield is fed up with the Labour Party, but many on the left seem to be excusing their behaviour.
Have they broken any rules? No. Have they broken any laws? No. Have they unlawfully prorogued Parliament? No. Have they lied to the House of Commons and been found to have done so by a committee of their own peers?
James O'Brien on LBC, although he's already started to eat his words and start backtracking as Allygate starts to unravel. Could all of this signal the beginning of the end for Sir Keir Starmer? Then in the interview, Andrew Eborn joins me to shed some light on his colourful career. Who is the real Andrew Eborn? Then, in clickbait, what happens? Yes, I'd love to hear your thoughts. But before we get started, let's get your latest news with Sophia Wensler.
Nana, thank you. Good afternoon. It's just gone 4 o'clock. I'm Sophia Wensler with your headlines. The Conservative Party conference is getting underway in Birmingham today, and it's kicking off already, with Tory leadership hopeful Robert Jenrick criticising rival Kemi Badenoch for saying maternity pay is excessive. Former Prime Minister Rishi Sunak and his wife arrived last night, but they're expected to leave later on today. It will be his last conference as leader. Earlier on GB News today, our deputy political editor, Tom Harwood, spoke to all the Tory leadership candidates. He quizzed Robert Jenrick on whether he could support any policy that the Labour government could table.
I've already said that the NHS needs reform. And if Wes Streeting and Keir Starmer come forward with genuine reforms in the national interest that improve productivity so that we actually talk about outputs, not just inputs, I would support them. I've already said that the NHS needs reform, and if Wes Streeting and Keir Starmer come forward with genuine reforms in the national interest that improve productivity so that we actually talk about outputs, not just inputs, I would support them.
And when pressed on why the Conservatives suffered such a historic loss at the general election, leadership candidate James Cleverly had this to say.
You've got to recognise that the British people kicked us out for a reason. And they kicked us out because of the gulf between what we said and what we did. So we need to promise less, but deliver on everything we promise.
Meanwhile, Tom Tugendhat was asked why MPs should back him, considering he's the only candidate left in the race who hasn't held a full cabinet position.
I'm not going to hold against them their lack of experience on the front line in combat. I'm not going to hold against them their lack of experience in serious operational theatres like Iraq and Afghanistan. I'm not going to hold against them their record of the past few years. My job is to set forward my record and demonstrate what I can offer this country.
And last but not least, Kemi Badenoch was asked if she thought the leadership contest has been a clean race.
I think that whenever people do things that are, about other candidates, people can see. So I'm just focused on my own campaign. It's for the party authorities to decide. I'm very happy to correct the record, but it shows that he's not actually reading or listening to what I'm saying.
Now, in other news, the Israeli military has launched fresh strikes on Lebanon today, saying they have struck dozens of Hezbollah targets. The latest wave of attacks comes after Israel killed 33 people and wounded 195 others yesterday. Yesterday, David Lammy spoke to the Lebanese Prime Minister following the series of Israeli airstrikes on Beirut. The Foreign Secretary says they agree that an immediate ceasefire is required to bring an end to the bloodshed. It comes after the terrorist group Hezbollah confirmed their leader, Hassan Nasrallah, was killed in airstrikes on southern Lebanon. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says Israel settled the score with Nasrallah's death. Now, back in the UK, Canterbury MP Rosie Duffield has resigned the Labour whip, accusing the Prime Minister of hypocrisy and pursuing cruel and unnecessary policies. In a resignation letter, Ms Duffield attacked Sir Keir Starmer's decision to keep the two-child benefit cap and means test winter fuel payments, and condemned his handling of the outcry over gifts given to him and other senior Labour figures. The Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster, Pat McFadden, told GB News he's disappointed by the resignation.
Well, I think when you read Rosie's resignation letter, you can see that these are the frustrations and disagreements of somebody who's held them for quite a long time. There's no secret about that. I think Rosie's been quite disaffected with the Labour leader, with the Labour Party for quite a while. So I'm disappointed to see her go because I like Rosie and I think she's got a lot to offer politics. But ultimately, I'm not surprised.
And almost 10 million households have been warned they risk overpaying for their energy if they don't send meter readings to their supplier before the price rise takes effect on the 1st of October. The average household energy bill is set to increase by £149 a year from this Tuesday as Ofgem increases its price cap. Those are the latest GB News headlines. Now it's back to Nana.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to news alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Good afternoon. It is fast approaching 7 minutes after 4 o'clock. This is GB News. We are live on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua. So the exodus begins. After less than 3 months in power, Sir Keir Starmer has lost one of his most promising rising female stars, Rosie Duffield, Labour MP for Canterbury. Now, Rosie first really came to prominence when she stuck up for women's rights by simply agreeing to the notion that only women have a cervix, which is obviously true because a cervix is the neck of a womb. And unless I've missed something, men don't have wombs. How quickly we forget the lunacy that possessed the party when it came to defining a woman.
A woman can have a penis.
Look, I don't think we can conduct this debate with,
Sorry, have I offended you in some way?
No, it's just... I just...
A woman can have a penis.
I don't think that discussing this issue in this way helps anyone in the long run.
It's laughable. Rosie was also frightened back then to go to her own party conference for fear of repercussions. And on resigning her position, she accused Sir Keir Starmer of presiding over sleaze, nepotism and apparent avarice, and that is off the scale. And that she was ashamed of what he and his inner circle had done to tarnish and humiliate our once proud party. Very powerful words. In fact, words, some of which, in particular sleaze, were attributed to the Conservative Party. She uses the word avarice, a word I think I last heard in the Bible. It means extreme greed for wealth and material gain. The cash for clothes Lord Allygate scandal is an absolute example of that. Yesterday, another £16,000 was undressed as being wrongly assigned as money for his private office. If it's all above board, why disguise it? The only reason I can think of would be because the person declaring it knew it would look bad if they were honest about it. She refers to nepotism, so helping close family and friends, and inner circle, she calls it, a bit like contracts going to people with close links to the Tories during the pandemic. There's a cigarette paper between the behaviours of both of our main political parties, and it's hilarious listening to the likes of James O'Brien trying to excuse it.
Does your ability to pay your gas bill, how is it in any way affected by the price of the suit that Keir Starmer is wearing? Wahid Ali is a Labour peer giving money to his own party, giving money to members of his own party, people, I don't know, perhaps he even describes as friends. So what is it that I am supposed to be cross about? And then the other voice kicks in and goes, no, you must be missing something. And you begin to, well, am I being tribal? Am I being all the things that I accuse other people of being? And you can answer that question quite easily. Have they broken any rules? No. Have they broken any laws? No. Have they unlawfully prorogued Parliament? No. Have they lied to the House of Commons and been found to have done so by a committee of their own peers?
Yeah, well, maybe not, but things are unravelling as we speak, and I suspect that there is way more to come. And for all of those, in particular, journalists and broadcasters who have tried to trivialise this story, but were hot on the heels of Boris Johnson and Partygate, this, in my view, is just the tip of the iceberg. In a resignation letter, Rosie stated, someone with far above average wealth choosing to keep the Conservatives' two-child limit to benefit payments, which entrenches children in poverty, whilst inexplicably accepting expensive personal gifts of designer suits and glasses, costing more than most of these people can grasp. This is entirely undeserving of holding the title of Labour Prime Minister. Rosie went on to say, forcing a vote to make many older people iller and colder, whilst you and your favourite colleagues enjoy free family trips to events most people would have to save hard for, why are you not showing even the slightest bit of embarrassment? Rosie declared that Keir is unfit for office, inexplicably choosing to accept designer suits, whilst at the same time pursuing cruel and unnecessary policies. Watch this space, because there's more to come. Before we get stuck into the debates, here is what else is coming up today. For the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, was Rosie Duffield right to quit Labour? The MP for Canterbury quit her party yesterday, saying the sleaze, nepotism and apparent avarice are all off the scale, and called the ongoing donations row cruel and unnecessary. And also for the second Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, was Rosie Duffield right to quit Labour? Then at 3:40, we'll be crossing live to the United States and get the latest from around the world from Paul Duddridge in World View. All of that on the way, plus at 5, I have a fabulous guest coming in, Andrew Eborn, the interview. You will not want to miss that. That's coming up in the next hour. As ever, send me your thoughts, post your comments, gbnews.com/your say. Well, joining me now, author and journalist Rebecca Reid. Rebecca, thank you very much for joining me. So Rosie Duffield has quit the Labour Party. In your view, did that feel like the right move for her?
I think it probably is the right move for her personally, because I don't think she's felt sort of at ease or particularly welcome in the party since her feelings around trans issues were made clear. And I don't think that sort of personal liaisons have been very good. And I imagine that from a sort of day-to-day basis, if you don't feel welcomed or supported by your colleagues, then it probably isn't the right job for you. I think her timing is interesting, and I think her methodology is perhaps a little uncomfortable. It's not what I would personally have done. But yes, I think ultimately it's probably best for her.
Surely you would support the things that she was supporting in terms of women's rights?
I mean, my personal opinion on trans rights is not relevant because I'm not an MP. I think her difficulty is that she believes things about trans people, about about trans people, which are very common in the UK, though not majority necessarily, but not common in the Labour Party. And it's a really thorny issue. You know, it is a complicated one. It does really divide people. And I think she's out of step with other people she's working with. And I think it seems like she's been made to feel quite uncomfortable at work, which nobody should be made to feel.
So where do you stand then on cash for clothes? These Labour Party receiving multiple donations of money to buy clothing, which some of them seem, well, it seems like a lot of money for clothes.
I don't have any issue with it. I mean, David Cameron and Samantha Cameron had similar setup, and I didn't have an issue with it with them either. I think what you wear for work is probably, I'm wearing a cardigan right now, but if you're trying to look smart and appropriate, I think it's a perfectly reasonable cost. I think anything that wasn't correctly and appropriately described, that's a mistake. It's a comms mistake. It makes you look bad, but I don't think it's morally an issue. I think Rosie Duffield, I think to suggest that it's this that she's gone over is perhaps untrue. I think she would always have gone. I think she probably stayed for the election because she wanted to win it as a Labour candidate, and then I think she was on the runway, and this felt like the appropriate moment. It reminded me a bit of when Piers Morgan left Good Morning Britain over Meghan Markle, and it felt like he was really ground down by that job and he was waiting for something to hang it on, and I think that's what she's done as well. I mean, Rosie Duffield accepted £12,000 of donations towards her campaign, all correctly and appropriately declared on the Register of Interest, but she's clearly not morally opposed to donations. I'm not sure how bothered that she really is about that. I think this is about the trans issues.
But £150,000 or £100,000 that we know of with Keir Starmer, that is a lot of money to be... I mean, it's the highest amount that any of the other MPs have taken in the form of, you know, in the form of gifts and so on and so forth. That is a lot, right? Surely.
I mean, that's from 2019 through 2024, and he was running a leadership bid. So, and also he has been very honest. And I think in places, the reporting of how this has been, I think media literacy is very bad around this, right? So the headline that you see is Keir Starmer takes £20,000 donation, and he didn't get given £20,000 of cash. He stayed at somebody's flat and they have to put a cost on it, which is an assessment. Now, actually, realistically, if you were renting out the flat he stayed at, it probably would have cost more than £20,000, but he wasn't given goods or services costing £20,000, and he certainly didn't get 20 grand in his bank account. And I think people are really losing track of this as if it's another expensive scandal. Now, apart from misdeclaring some of the clothes, all of this is completely legal and above board. And if you think the system is broken, then absolutely let's talk about reform. But they haven't done anything illegal. They haven't done anything that would get you that you need to resign over. It's actually much less of an issue than it's being reported as. And that is also true of when Boris Johnson did it, when it was correctly, appropriately. Whenever he declared something correctly and appropriately, he was perfectly within his rights to do it. David Cameron also got lots and lots of donations. He declared them. It was not illegal. It was appropriate at the time.
Well, I was just going to say, well, the last donation, £16,000 worth, I mean, that was in 2023 and 2024, the 10,000 and 6,000 respectively. That was quite a bit. I say that's a lot for clothes in that short space of time. But you pointed out the flat, so we'll come to that briefly because I know I have to go to the Tory party conference very quickly. But where do you stand with the flat where he was broadcasting from, where he clearly put pictures up to try and make it look like it was his own place?
I think that's fairly normal. I mean, whenever the royals do a sort of broadcast, they will put sort of family photos around that are oriented. And I've known videographers who work on that project. And it's the same whenever you make any kind of broadcast, you do shape the background because you're trying to send a message of I'm a family man, I'm a good person. So I don't think it was anywhere near as malicious as people want to present it as. I think it was absolutely, it was marketing and it was about branding. But I don't think there was ever any desire to sort of lie to the public. I think it's like when podcasters or vloggers use a studio that's got a sort of fake home background. It's to try and make you feel like they're relatable, which obviously he's not. He's incredibly rich.
I think that depends what the message is. I mean, if you're telling other people to stay at home, then you're not even broadcasting from your home and you make the place look like your home. A lot of people would probably disagree with you on that one. But Rebecca Breed, thank you very much for your thoughts. That's Rebecca Breed. She is a broadcaster and journalist. Meanwhile, the Conservative Party conference has begun and the leadership candidates have laid out their plans on their key policies as they are vying to replace Rishi Sunak as their leader. Now, this is the first conference since their election defeat in July. Robert Jenrick, Tom Tugendhat, Kemi Badenoch and James Cleverly are busy drumming up support in the contest. Well, let's now cross over live to Birmingham and speak to GB News' Deputy Political Editor, Tom Harwood. So, Tom Harwood, give us an update. What's happening at conference?
Well, goodness me, it's only a few minutes until Rishi Sunak, remember him, gets to the stage here at conference for what will be his only appearance publicly in this entire party conference. Yes, he's still leader of the Conservative Party, he's still leader of the opposition, because this contest to replace him is going on and on. There are calls actually to shorten the contest so that the new leader, when elected, could respond to this budget that is coming next month from the Chancellor Rachel Reeves. Two candidates are saying that this race should be shortened. Two candidates are less sure. But yes, Rishi Sunak will be speaking at around 1:30 this hour and likely saying sorry. Sorry for an election result that delivered the Conservative Party its lowest number of seats in its history. Yes, just 121 members of parliament elected for this party, way down from the 365 they were elected under Boris Johnson in 2019. What a precipitous fall, but it's a fall that also strangely gives people at this conference hope. If an enormous majority won under Boris Johnson can be turned around in one parliamentary term, that means that some leadership contenders are saying that this enormous Labour Party majority could swing back just as quickly. Are we in for an era of what some psephologists are calling promiscuous voters? Yes, electors willing to switch from one party to another like never before. An electorate that is less sticky. Perhaps that is what this next 4 or 5 year government term will deliver.
An election full of swingers. Thank you very much. Tom Harwood there, GBNews Senior Deputy Political Editor. Right, let's see what you're saying. gbnews.com/you'll say. Keep them coming. I'll read some in just a moment. But first, we're live on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua. Next up, it's time for the Great British Debate this hour. I'm asking, was Rosie Duffield right to quit Labour?
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Martin Daubney, weekdays from 3 p.m.
Strictly starts tomorrow. There's been a bit of controversy around this year's show. What are your thoughts on that? You've been defending Giovanni. What's your thoughts on all of this year's show and the build-up to it?
Oh, I think it will be as wonderful as it's always been. You know, it's an uplifting show, isn't it? It's got the glamour, everything. There's nothing to make you sad in it. And, you know, I had the most amazing time. And Giovanni was my partner. And it's still, you know, a life-changing experience. And at that time in my life as well, it was a year after Paul, my late husband, had died. You know, it was a tough, tough time. And it just totally brought me out of all my grief. And everyone on the programme is just so lovely. It's like a big family. And my experience of Giovanni, I know other people have said they've had a different experience, but mine was he really looked after me in my grief.
I remember, Debbie, at the time you spoke so movingly about how dance was like therapy for you. It helped to bring your Shazam back. It got you back on track. But could I ask you at all about the investigation that's being carried out in Giovanni? Do you think that can be properly conducted? And have you been approached to give any evidence in that?
I think it will. I'm sure that, you know, they will do it very thoroughly. And the fact that it's taken quite a long time, you know, is that they're really going into it to make sure they make the right decision at the end of it. And I think lots of people will be invited to give their experience of Strictly. So I just hope at the end of the day, you know, I don't want anyone to be bullied. You know, I'm really against all of that.
GB News, the People's Channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
23 minutes after 4 o'clock. Welcome. This is GB News. We are Britain's news channel. I'm Nana Akua. We are live on TV, online and on digital radio. It's time now for the Great British Debate this hour. And I'm asking, in your view, was Rosie Duffield right to quit the Labour Party? Now, the Canterbury MP has spectacularly quit, branding their policies as cruel and unnecessary, and saying the sleaze and nepotism within the party is off the scale. And avarice, what an interesting word, I haven't heard that in years. So for the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, was she right to quit? Well, joining me now, GB News senior political commentator Nigel Nelson, also broadcaster and journalist Danny Kelly. Right, Nigel Nelson, Rosie Duffield, she's quit, she's gone.
She has gone. And it's a matter of conscience for her, in which case then her decision, so I'm not going to criticise her for that. The only criticism I've got is that she's not holding a by-election. I think that whenever an MP changes party or abandons their existing party, it's important they put that to the constituents who voted for them under a different banner. And that's what I think she ought to do. Douglas Carswell did it when he left the Tory party and joined UKIP. He held a by-election, won fair and square as the UKIP candidate. That was the honourable thing to do.
But you don't always do that. The Labour Party don't always do that, do they?
No, but very few MPs do it. I mean,
why? They were elected by constituents who elected...
But they were elected under a party banner. And I think that if you abandon that, you must give your constituents a second chance to say, do they approve of that?
I don't necessarily disagree with that, Nigel. Danny Kelly.
I think Nigel's bang on the money. I would say that 10 or 15% of the people who actually voted for her were aware of her name. I think people just vote under the banner Labour. I know whenever I cast my vote, I don't know who the hell is representing that party, generally speaking. I just vote for that party. And I think she should call a by-election for everything that Nigel has said. And I wish she would, because I don't think Labour would win.
I don't think they would either. It'd be a landslide.
And if she... Yeah. And there's another way to look at it. If she really was so principled... The other way to look at it is that she should hold a by-election, because then that would worry Keir Starmer, and potentially if they were not to get a victory in that constituency, then that would give Keir Starmer something to really think about, the general state of national politics, and is he getting it right or wrong? I think Labour would lose.
Do you think?
I do. I think the pensioner thing has switched a lot of people off Labour.
Well, Nigel, you're calling for the by-election, and if she did, it would sound like I think that they would lose as well.
Not necessarily. I mean, I think that Canterbury, where Rosie is the MP, is a slightly different place, that she has a very strong local recognition. I think she had a fairly strong personal vote.
Well, when I say Labour would lose, she would win, but she's not representing the Labour Party anymore.
Oh, sorry,
that's what I mean.
Yeah,
she's an independent.
I think that for that reason, it's worth her giving it a go. Yeah. But obviously, there is a risk that she wouldn't win it.
I don't think she will win, especially under this current sort of iteration.
Actually, maybe she wouldn't win.
Why?
Well, because she's going to dilute that vote, isn't she? So I don't know who the second person was and how many votes he or she got.
It's been a Tory constituency forever until
there you go, then.
Duffield came along.
And what was the majority? How many votes?
Oh, they had a huge majority.
Really?
Then it all switched round, and so she won it back in. I think she won it back in 2017.
Yeah.
And has been an MP there since. But up until then, it had been a rock solid Tory seat.
Do you know, that would be almost like a parochial vote on national politics, that would be.
Well,
that would be a small constituency.
Yeah.
That would be a parochial vote on national politics, and it would give Labour a bloody nose. And Keir Starmer personally, something to think about.
Well, listen, Benny B has talked and said all these Labour apologists are trying to take everyone's eye off the ball by throwing in nonsense like Starmer didn't get 20 grand into his bank account, or it would have cost more to rent a place. The issue is his honesty in declaring the gifts and whether he should hold the post of Prime Minister. Yeah, June says Rosie Duffield is a genuine, truthful MP. Well done to her for speaking out I do hope she crosses over to reform. A lot of people calling for her to do that. And Michael says, with regard to what Rebecca Reid said earlier, Nana, Miss Reid saying that apart from declaring something a bit late, Starmer has done nothing wrong. That does not wash for someone who read the rules and regulations so intently to Sunak not so long ago. He should have not made any mistakes at all. And also, does that include the new revelation of another £16,000 declared for clothes? Yeah, well, it's declared for private office use or whatever, but it turned out it was clothes. I mean, do you think Rosie has a point here? That the avarice and the greed and the, you know, and the sleaze, which is just pointing out. Keir Starmer went on and on and on and on about this, and here he is.
I think Keir Starmer's detached from general public life. I really do. You've got someone who is so minted. He is detached from what the normal man and woman think on the street, even though he says he's not and that he's on their side and he empathises with the working man or woman. You know, how someone who is so minted can take $2.5 grand over a certain number of years for glasses for eye furniture, and he doesn't see that the optics... There's the pun. The optics are awful. I mean, he's myopic. There's another one for you. Yeah. He is myopic in the extreme.
Should be a tabloid journalist.
Well, I think he's spectacularly...
Oh, that's a stinker.
Yeah, I mean, I do tend to agree with that. That I think Rebecca Reid was right that when she said he hasn't done anything wrong, he's worked within the rules.
Morally,
apart from late declarations, but it is the optics of it. You don't go around taking expensive presents.
But it's just like when they're trying to get Amazon or other people to pay more tax, and they're trying to say that it's a moral position that you're holding. The way he's behaved is kind of morally wrong, and that's what people don't like.
Well, I think that's right. It's an easily understood thing that suddenly here's somebody who is not rich but moderately well off, getting £32,000 worth of clothes and glasses. That comes up to almost the average wage of someone working full-time in Britain. So, yes, people find that objectionable, and so do I. I just think that the trouble about this story is that an awful lot has been lumped into it. Suddenly, Wes Streeting is being criticised for holding a fundraiser in Wahid Ali's flat. That's perfectly reasonable. I'm not too bothered about...
But it is the sort of all of the things. It's not just the one thing. But that's the point. It's Lord Ali seems to have been donating to loads of people on the Labour Party's front bench, and it does just look a bit off.
What does Ali want? Why is he giving him everything? That's what you got to ask. You know, if you are giving people continuously thousands of pounds worth of benefits in kind, if you like, because Rebecca was right. I agree with Rebecca about the house. You know, the tabloids now have worked out what that would be to rent a day and then multiplied it. I think that's a bit off, personally. The glasses, his missus...
But why was he there? He's telling everyone to stay at home. He's at somebody else's flat.
OK,
and he's trying to make it
I get that, but it's the monetary value of it, which I don't think is...
I think that's fair enough, because you've got to value something to work out what it is worth, because that's what they're doing. They're doing things where you can almost not work out the value.
Well, it must be declared, and the whole point is it must be declared...
And then they've declared it as well.
Yes. Yeah. And certainly it looks as if it's been under-declared for the value that he got from that. I mean, I think that, again, there was nothing wrong about making a COVID broadcast from Wahid Ali's flat. But once again, the optics are very bad. If you're going to tell people to stay at home,
and then
don't tell them from somebody else's home.
That's exactly right.
It just seems extraordinary that he didn't see that one coming.
But why is it that a lot of people on the left continue to justify this? I mean, I respect the fact, Nigel, that you're being honest about it. But, you know, Rebecca Reid, James O'Brien, all these people who are trying to make up excuses as though this is perfectly good and OK, when this is not a party political issue. All of them are doing it. The Conservative Party did it and got lambasted for it. If the Labour Party do it, they should also receive the same treatment. But what do you think? GBNews.com/your say. So was Rosie Duffield right to leave for the avarice that she describes? Post me your thoughts, send me your comments. Coming up, Worldview. I'll be joined by Paul Dudridge. He's live from the States. Donald Trump is threatening to criminally prosecute Google if he wins the election in November. Next, though, we've got the Great British Debate, and I'm asking, do you agree with Kemi Badenoch, as she says, not all cultures are equal? Let's get your latest news headlines with Sophia Wensler.
Good afternoon. It's just gone 4:30. These are your headlines. The Conservative Party conference is getting underway in Birmingham today, And it's kicking off already with Tory leadership hopeful Robert Jenrick criticising rival Kemi Badenoch for saying maternity pay is excessive. Speaking to Times Radio, Kemi Badenoch said maternity pay has gone too far and the government needed to interfere less in people's lives. Mr Jenrick responded to the comments, saying that the party should be firmly on the side of parents. All the leadership hopefuls, including James Cleverly, Robert Jenrick, Tom Tugendhat and Kemi Badenoch, will be making their case to be the next leader of the party. Now, in other news, David Lammy has spoken to the Lebanese Prime Minister following a series of Israeli airstrikes on Beirut. The Foreign Secretary says they agreed that an immediate ceasefire is required to bring an end to the bloodshed. It comes after the terrorist group Hezbollah confirmed their leader, Hassan Nasrallah, was killed in an airstrike in southern Lebanon. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says Israel settled the score with Nasrallah's death. Israel also says 20 other senior Hezbollah figures have been killed in the attack. Now, back in the UK, Canterbury MP Rosie Duffield has resigned the Labour whip, accusing the Prime Minister of hypocrisy and pursuing cruel and unnecessary policies. In a resignation letter, Ms Duffield attacked Sir Keir Starmer's decision to keep the two-child benefit cap and means test winter fuel payments and condemned his handling of the outcry over gifts given to him and other senior Labour figures. And some breaking news coming to us out of Austria, where early projections are showing the right-leaning Freedom Party have finished first in the Austrian general election. The right-leaning group is expected to be in pole position to form a coalition for the first time since the Second World War. And we'll bring you more on that as we get it. Those are your latest GB News headlines. More in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Good afternoon, welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. We've got an east-west split in the weather today, but it's going to be turning increasingly unsettled with heavy spells of rain and some strong winds. And this is all to do with an area of low pressure out towards the west. We have a squeeze in those isobars as well, indicating some strong winds, and we do have a Met Office wind warning in force for gusts of 50 to 60 miles per hour across parts of Wales and the southwest of England, accompanied by some heavy spells of rainfall. Further towards the north into Scotland and Northern Ireland, generally seeing a largely cloudy night to start Monday morning, but a mild start with generally lows of 10 or 11 degrees. So a damp start to Monday morning. We've got outbreaks of heavy rain, and we also have a rain warning that comes into force across much of the southern parts of England and into Wales. That rain continues to push into parts of the Midlands and northern eastern parts of England as well. Cloudier skies to start across parts of Northern Ireland with outbreaks of rain here. Across parts of Scotland, though, we may see some brightness, but on the whole, it's still quite a cloudy picture with some spots of rain. So through Monday morning, that rain continues to push its way north and eastwards, lingers for a time across northern parts of Wales into North Midlands and into Yorkshire. So we could see some further disruption here with possible flooding as well. Towards the south of that, turning drier with some bright skies developing, and across parts of Scotland as well. We may hold on to some sunshine, but on the whole, it's a largely cloudy day. So through Monday evening, that rain continues across much of northern parts of England, really holding on across parts of Lincolnshire as well. But as we go through Tuesday, Wednesday and Thursday, it should be turning drier and also brighter, highs of 18.
Mark Dolan tonight is your weekend dose of news, debate and entertainment.
This sounds like a wild conspiracy theory.
Don't miss my big opinion. Mark meets and my take at 10.
Democracy is a funny old thing.
And we don't do boring, not on my watch. I just won't have it.
Let's go and get another glass of that bubbly. You've earned it.
That's Mark Dolan tonight, Saturday and Sunday, 9 to 11, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Are the newspapers getting you down?
My wife didn't divorce me that month.
Struggling to separate the wheat from the chaff?
I know that it's a bit of a circus at the best of times.
Well, don't worry, Headliners has got you covered. We'll take the burden of reading the day's news, and if we get depressed, who cares? It's an occupational hazard, frankly. That's Headliners on GB News from 11 p.m. till midnight, and the following morning, 5 till 6 a.m. on GB News, the comedy channel. Nah, just kidding. Britain's news channel.
38 minutes after 4 o'clock. Welcome if you just tuned in. Where have you been? But I'm glad you're here now. I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News. We are Britain's news channel. Lots of you getting in touch with your thoughts about the Conservative Party conference. Andy says the Tea Party conference is a few people talking to themselves. Oliver says, I wonder what sort of gifts Father Ali Christmas will give to Starmer this year. Probably nothing, to be fair, not after this. Richard Stevens says 3 cheers for Rosie Duffield. Rosie Duffield, who has, of course, quit the Labour Party. And then, who is it that said, oh, yes, Adrian says, Nana, Lee Anderson went to Reform. There was no by-election, so why should there be for now? Well, that's because, remember, it was really leading up to the general election, so there was literally only a few weeks. So you'd then have 2 of them, which didn't make any sense at all. So no, that was why. But he would have done, I presume, if it had been a longer gap. But right now it's time for the Great British Debate this out. And I'm asking, do you agree with Kemi Badenoch? Now, this comes as the Tory leadership candidate suggested not all cultures are equally valid when it comes to immigration, and failing to recognise this is naive. She emphasised her own immigrant background, saying many stay away from discussing the issues around culture for fear of being labelled xenophobic. So for the Great British Debate this out, I'm asking, do you agree with Kemi Badenoch? Well, joining me to discuss, broadcaster and journalist Danny Kelly, and also GB News senior political commentator Nigel Nelson. I just followed the script. Nigel.
I don't understand what she means. Now, it seems to me that anybody who chooses to come to live here, one of the things they must do is obey British law and embrace British values. And but it doesn't mean necessarily abandoning their own cultural, ethnic roots. So if they want to celebrate their own religious ceremonies, I think that is perfectly OK. So when she's talking about some cultures are less equal than others, I don't know what it means. I don't know what she's getting at. And I also found a remark that within that interview where she said a lot of people coming here hate Israel. Well, where's the evidence for this? I mean, it may well be some people coming here are anti-Israeli or pro-Palestinian.
She might be talking about the swamping of the streets of people.
Well, if she is, then an awful lot of those are British citizens. So we can't.
Well, I think that's part of the point she's making, though, isn't it? That when you come to this country, culture is more than cuisine or clothes, but it's more customs and things like that, and adhering to British values. And I think, in her view, she was.
Well, protest is a British value. I mean, that we are a democratic country and people are allowed to protest and express their point of view.
Yes, but we probably wouldn't be, shouting from the river to the sea and things like that. I think the culture of this country is not one to sort of behave in that manner. I think so. That's how I feel.
Well, I mean, I don't call it free speech, but
it might be free speech, but I think our culture is where we're a lot kinder than that. I think the culture of this country is.
It's interesting about British values. I want to know what the definition or the definitions of British values.
Yeah, there isn't one.
It's difficult, isn't it? It's complex and it's subjective. For me, it's the rule of law. It's treating people equally. If you're gay, you shouldn't be persecuted for being gay. If you're a woman, you should be treated equally like a man. And there are. And I agree with Nigel, the word equal, it's unnecessary and it's confusing. I think if she'd have just said, look, if you're going to come to the country, just embrace British values, and there are 4 examples of what British values are. And then you can start to have a discussion about areas of the world where people don't embrace those values.
OK, so she said here, we cannot be naive and assume immigrants will automatically abandon ancestral ethnic hostilities at the border, or that all cultures are equally valid. They are not.
Again, valid, I don't understand understand why she used the word valid. But anyway, there are parts of the world and there are people coming into this country who do not embrace those 4 values that I just mentioned.
See, I sort of get where she's going with this, but to me, I'm slightly confused with what she's saying there as well.
Well, I think that's we're all agreeing on that it's not clear what she's trying to get at. And, well, I mean, this is one of the things I was saying about her earlier. There's an awful lot of this. I'm not quite sure, what does she mean? You mentioned, in fact, the McDonald's, where she said that she became working class at 16 by shifting in a McDonald's. Don't know what that means exactly. First of all, it seems to be nonsense, but I just don't know what she was trying to get at. And that's one of the problems I've found about her leadership. She is one of the favourites, and yet she comes out with what I can only describe as things that are just patently odd.
Do you think it's a bit gobbledygook there? Doesn't make any sense.
But just to unpick and just try and get into her mindset, what about the people who are coming to this country who do not embrace, for example, equality for women and equality for people who are homosexuals? Now, there are parts of this world, if you go to India, for example, they've got the caste system, where you have incredible poverty and you are destined for a life of incredible poverty because of the family who you were born into. It's called the caste system. And there's 1 billion people, I understand, there or thereabouts, on the Indian subcontinent.
Weirdly, it was the British, when they went to India, who actually entrenched that you could actually move up and down castes, and then we insisted the caste was put on ID cards, and suddenly they couldn't move around. Yes.
But my point is that if you come from that part of the world and those values are entrenched in you, and you come over to the UK, then you are less likely, in my opinion, to embrace I'm going to go back to my earlier statement about British values.
I think that's the point that she's trying to make, although I think it's slightly clumsily put in this. But I hear what she's trying to get to, which is that we can't assume that when somebody comes to this country, they'll then leave all those disputes that they've had with people from other cultures, within their own culture that they've come from, where they'll leave them at the border. So we are importing internal cultures from other cultures into our own culture.
Yeah, no, I can see that. I mean, clearly, if, say, somebody's coming from the Middle East, they would have very definite ideas about the Israel-Gaza, Hezbollah dispute.
Well, exactly. And
but if that's within the context of Danny's British values that you've outlined, that's fine.
But she's saying that they're not equal then, because then when you come to this country, those things are not left, and then we end up with a culture that then suddenly there's an issue with women and all that kind of thing. Well, listen, this show's nothing without you and your views. So let's welcome our great British voice onto the show. Their opportunity to be on the show and tell us what they think about the topics we're discussing. Where should we go? Should we go to Northamptonshire and speak to Miranda Richardson? The Miranda Richardson. No, not the Miranda Richardson. It's our Miranda Richardson. Miranda, do you understand do you understand what Kemi's trying to drive at? Does it make any sense to you? Is it gobbledygook?
I kind of get what she's trying to say, and I kind of agree with Danny on that, with the British values. I just think in a little bit of true politician form, she's made it very hard to understand what she was trying to say to people. I think that's kind of how it's come across. Nobody... I say nobody. People don't necessarily want to support FGM. People don't necessarily want to support child marriage. You know, being anti-gay. You know, these are all issues that as a cultural society we don't really want to tolerate. So I fully understand that. I just think in how she's dealt with it and the phrasing she's used, and not everybody's equal. Well, hang on, you're saying not everybody's equal, but we're pushing for equal rights for everybody, you know. So I think it's slightly difficult how she's kind of phrased it, and it has made it very hard to understand. But I do get, you know, British values. You know, in a past life, I had to teach British values, which were our laws and how we live and what it means and how we're here. We know when we travel to other countries, we have to obey by their rules and their regulations. You know, you can get put to prison in countries that you go to if you go with your partner and you're not married, for example. You know, that's their culture. We get that. I just think she could have probably phrased it a little bit less political, as we would say.
It was a bit of a word salad, wasn't it? Thank you very much, Miranda. Lovely to speak to you. That's Miranda Richardson. She is our great British voice for this hour. Right, you're with me. I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. Coming up in the next hour, the next Great British debate, I'm asking, is this the beginning of the end for Sir Keir Starmer? Next, though, it's Worldview with Paul Duttridge.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
And feelings of stress and anxiety tend to be quite normal for a lot of kids. And if it's normal for the kids, then it affects the parents as well.
Well, it seems that our canine friends could be the cure after new research by the University of Bristol found that dogs are incredibly sensitive to their owners' emotions.
OK, how do we cheat into this? How can your doggy help your family handle stress during this time of the year? Let's go to the Director of Canine Affairs at Guide Dogs UK, Tim Stafford. Tim, we're talking about this as if it's a big revelation, but obviously, you know, a man like yourself, you're well used to this, and you can see when a dog is reacting. What form would that reaction take, do you think?
Yeah, you know what? It's nice when the science kind of confirms what most of us have known for a very long time. Our dogs become members of our family and they come very, very close to us. So it's no surprise that anything that goes on in the family is going to be detected and picked up by the dog. That can be changes in behaviours. It can certainly be the dogs watching our behaviours and starting to mirror those behaviours. But what this research says is that the dogs can actually smell our emotions. It's not just that they're responding to our behaviour changes, they're responding to our physiological changes as well, because we smell differently when we start to get anxious. So at this time, there's lots of changes in a lot of families' lives. Kids are going back to school, young people are going to university, parents are having to deal with all of the emotions attached to that. So it's no surprise that our dogs start to detect that too.
GB News, the People's Channel.
The king of breakfast TV is back. That's right. Britain's favourite TV host, Eamon Holmes, returns to Britain's hottest breakfast programme. Breakfast every day from 6 a.m. Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking, this is a nightmare for the Conservatives again. Down to earth. It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it? And most importantly, honest. Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them. They catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon. It's just gone 16:50. This is GB News. We are Britain's news channel. I'm Nana Akua. Welcome. Let's travel over to America now and find out what's going on in the United States. Let's speak to the host of the Politics People podcast, Paul Dudridge. Let's travel over there. It's World View. Of course, Trump is threatening to criminally prosecute Google if he wins in November. Paul, do you think he might be biting off more than he can chew on that one?
Yes, and don't say it until he's won. What's he? Oh, I'm sitting here in Wahid Ali's back room, and I'm like, don't say stuff like that. Say, I'm going to give Google $10 billion if I win. Instead, he said, I'm going to criminally prosecute the people that badmouth me. And it's like, is in everybody's home. So, listen, he has said, because of the bad stories that the algorithm keeps finding about him, he is going to criminally prosecute Google for that algorithm that finds these bad stories and promotes them if he wins the election. And he just makes winning the election less likely. Now he's gone for Google. Anyway, but yes, that's yesterday, that was.
Yeah, you see, I don't know why he's doing this, because according to the Gallup poll, more Americans identified there was Republicans than Democrats, and that's for the first time in decades. So maybe him saying that might not harm him too much, but I don't think it's wise. I'm with you.
Yeah, it's just unnecessary. It's just he could just say, look, they're less favourable to me. Look, he used to do it with the news media, fake news. He didn't go on then to say, I'm going to criminally prosecute CNN. He would just be like, you cannot believe them, which I think is perfectly in tune with his normal message. But yeah, no, and as you say, more, this is important. More Republicans or more US citizens are finally identifying as Republican, which is actually a bit of a surprise if you consider how much bias there's been in the media in the United States for the last few years. And that's a very good sign. And the reason it's important is this has come from Gallup polling. That actually that's an indicator. I think the last time was 2004, and this usually works favorably, you know, quelle surprise, for the Republican candidate. So that's a very nice little indicator. There are a lot of nice. I think the last time we spoke, I said the one candidate that he could beat is Kamala. And I have to say, with little sort of signs like that, little flips in that direction, it's looking very favorable for him for the first time in a long time. And I would also say, you know, in contrast to the Google story, the news media over here is actually giving Kamala quite a grilling that it never gave Joe Biden.
Interesting. Well, that's because she seems a little bit crazy sometimes with all that laughing. And also, she's making a rare visit to the border, which I would suggest she probably stays away because then it highlights her incompetence when it came to it.
She is more interested, her team are more interested in campaign claiming that she was never the border czar, when a simple, if you use bad story Google, you can just find CNN going, the border czar, the border czar. But she's like, first time in like 3.5 years she's visited. I've been there more often, and I don't even live anywhere near it. And she's like, first time in 3.5 years, she is going to be the border president, she says. She is, you know, tough on the border. And there's something like, they agree it's like 8 to 10 million have come in during this administration across that border.
Yeah, well, she should probably stay away from it because then it absolutely highlights her incompetence. Paul Dudridge, always a pleasure. Thank you very much for joining me. You've gone very American with your hair, though. I think the Americanism is seeping into him now because he says very bouffanty. Good to see you, Paul. Next up, though, if you've just tuned in, welcome. I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. On the way, the interview with Andrew Eborn. You've seen him a lot on the channel, but who is Andrew Eborn? He's done a lot. He's got a very fascinating story. You will not want to miss it. But first, let's get an update with your weather.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good afternoon, welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. We've got an east-west split in the weather today, but it's going to be turning increasingly unsettled with heavy spells of rain and some strong winds. And this is all to do with an area of low pressure out towards the west. We have a squeeze in those isobars as well, indicating some strong winds, and we do have a Met Office wind warning in force for gusts of 50 to 60 miles per hour across parts of Wales and the southwest of England, accompanied by some heavy spells of rainfall. Further towards the north into Scotland and Northern Ireland, generally seeing a largely cloudy night to start Monday morning, but a mild start with generally lows of 10 or 11 degrees. So a damp start to Monday morning. We've got outbreaks of heavy rain, and we also have a rain warning that comes into force across much of the southern parts of England and into Wales. That rain continues to push into parts of the Midlands and northern eastern parts of England as well. Cloudier skies to start across parts of Northern Ireland with outbreaks of rain here. Across parts of Scotland, though, we may see some brightness, but on the whole, it's still quite a cloudy picture with some spots of rain. So through Monday morning, that rain continues to push its way north and eastwards, lingers for a time across northern parts of Wales into North Midlands and into Yorkshire. So we could see some further disruption here with possible flooding as well. Towards the south of that, turning drier with some bright skies developing, and across parts of Scotland as well. We may hold on to some sunshine, but on the whole, it's a largely cloudy day. So through Monday evening, that rain continues across much of northern parts of England, really holding on across parts of Lincolnshire as well. But as we go through Tuesday, Wednesday and Thursday, it should be turning drier and also brighter, highs of 18.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good luck.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates. You're comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister.
Which is it?
Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained.
I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday.
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Are the newspapers getting you down?
My wife didn't divorce me that month.
Struggling to separate the wheat from the chaff?
I know that it's a bit of a circus at the best of times.
Well, don't worry, Headliners has got you covered. We'll take the burden of reading the day's news, and if we get depressed, who cares? It's an occupational hazard, frankly. That's Headliners on GB News from 11 p.m. till midnight, and the following morning, 5 till 6 a.m. on GB News, the comedy channel. Nah, just kidding. Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon. It's just coming up to 5 o'clock. This is GB News. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua. And for the next hour, me and my panel will be taking on some of the big topics hitting the headlines right now. This show is all about opinion. It's mine, it's theirs, and of course it's yours. We'll be debating, discussing, and at times we will disagree, but no one will be cancelled. So joining me today, GB News senior political commentator Nigel Nelson, and also broadcaster and journalist Danny Kelly. Coming up, the Tory party conference has kicked off today, but which Tory candidate gets your vote? Robert Jenrick, Kemi Badenoch, James Cleverly, and of course Tom Tugendhat. They're battling it out to lead the party. I've got a poll up right now on X asking you that very question, which Tory candidate gets your vote? If it's none of the above, then let us know why that is as well. Then the interview. Andrew Eborn joins me to shed some light on his very colourful career. Who is the real Andrew Eborn? Then, in clickbait, some interesting decisions on the catwalk from this model. But what happens next? She appears to jump, grab a bar in the air, and then, well, what happens next? You won't want to miss it. It's hilarious. But first, let's get your latest news headlines with Sophia Wensler.
Nana, thank you. Good afternoon. It's just gone 5 o'clock. I'm Sophia Wensler with your headlines. The Conservative Party conference is getting underway in Birmingham today, and it's kicking off already with Tory leadership hopeful Robert Jenrick criticising rival Kemi Badenoch for saying maternity pay is excessive. Speaking to Times Radio, Kemi Badenoch said maternity pay has gone too far and the government needed to interfere less in people's lives. Mr Jenrick responded to the comments, saying that the party should be firmly on the side of parents. Meanwhile, earlier on GB News today, our deputy political editor, Tom Harwood, spoke to all of the Tory leadership candidates. He quizzed Robert Jenrick on whether he could support any policy that the Labour government could table.
I've already said that the NHS needs reform, and if Wes Streeting and Keir Starmer come forward with genuine reforms in the national interest that improve productivity so that we actually talk about outputs, not just inputs, I would support them. I've already said that the NHS needs reform, and if Wes Streeting and Keir Starmer come forward with genuine reforms in the national interest that improve productivity so that we actually talk about outputs, not just inputs, I would support them.
And when pressed on why the Conservatives suffered such a historic loss at the general election, leadership candidate James Cleverly had this to say.
You've got to recognise that the British people kicked us out for a reason.
and they kicked us out because of the gulf between what we said and what we did. So we need to promise less but deliver on everything we promise.
Meanwhile, Tom Tugendhat was asked why MPs should back him, considering he's the only candidate left in the race who hasn't held a full cabinet position.
I'm not going to hold against them their lack of experience on the front line in combat. I'm not going to hold against them their lack of experience in serious operational theatres like Iraq and Afghanistan. I'm not going to hold against them their record of the past few years. My job is to set forward my record and demonstrate what I can offer this country.
And last but not least, Kemi Badenoch was asked if she thought the leadership contest has been a clean race.
I think that whenever people do things that are, about other candidates, people can see. So I'm just focused on my own campaign. It's for the party authorities to decide. I'm very happy to correct the record, but it shows that he's not actually reading or listening to what I'm saying.
In other news, the Israeli military has launched fresh strikes on Lebanon today, saying they have struck dozens of Hezbollah targets. The latest wave of attacks comes after Israel killed 33 people and wounded 195 others yesterday. That's according to the Lebanese Health Ministry. Yesterday, David Lammy spoke with the Lebanese Prime Minister following a series of strikes on Beirut. The Foreign Secretary says they agreed that an immediate ceasefire is required to bring an end to the bloodshed. It comes after the terrorist group Hezbollah confirmed their leader, Hassan Nasrallah, was killed in an airstrike on southern Lebanon. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says Israel settled the score with Nasrallah's death. To Austria now, where early projections are showing the right-leaning Freedom Party has finished first in the Austrian general election. The party, led by Herbert Kickl, has promised Austrians to build Fortress Austria to restore their security, prosperity and peace. The right-leaning group is expected to be in pole position to form a coalition for the first time since the Second World War. Now, almost 10 million households have been warned they risk overpaying for their energy if they don't send meter readings to their supplier before the price rise takes effect on the 1st of October. The average household energy bill is set to increase by £149 a year from this Tuesday, as Ofgem increases its price cap. Philip Schofield says the utter betrayal by his television colleagues has made him never want to be a daytime presenter ever again. The 62-year-old is set to appear on Channel 5's Castaway, marking his first TV appearance since leaving ITV in May of 2023, following an admission of an unwise but not illegal affair with a younger male colleague. And finally, SpaceX has launched its mission to bring back 2 astronauts who have been stranded on the International Space Station. The Dragon capsule, which has...
2, 1, ignition, full power, and liftoff.
The Dragon capsule, which has 2 empty seats for Butch Wilmore and Sonny Williams, lifted off from Cape Canaveral last night. The pair were only meant to be in space for 8 days, but after a fault was found on their return vehicle, the new Boeing Starliner, it returned to Earth empty as a precaution, leaving them stranded for almost 4 months. The new team hope to bring them back in February of next year. Those are the latest GB News headlines. Now it's back to Nana.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to news alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thank you, Sophia. This is GB News. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua. Welcome if you've just tuned in. Coming up, we'll be going live to the Conservative Party conference as the 4 candidates are vying for the job of replacing Rishi Sunak as leader. We'll have all the latest from Birmingham. The interview, I'll be joined today by lawyer, broadcaster and futurist Andrew Eborn. He'll be here to discuss his remarkable career. Now, from broadcaster or from lawyer to broadcaster, he's done it all. You won't want to miss that. Then, for the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, is this the beginning of the end for Sir Keir Starmer? He's just lost Rosie Duffield, an MP, and his approval ratings are at record lows. So for the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, is this the beginning of the end for our Prime Minister? And in clip and bait, what happens next? Have a look. It's a model who seems to have grabbed a bar overhead and is doing a sort of split jump type thing. What do you think happens next? You won't want to miss it. It's hilarious. Send me your thoughts, post your comments at gbnews.com/yoursay. So the Conservative Party conference has begun today and leadership candidates have laid out their plans on a range of policies in their hope to replace Rishi Sunak as the leader. Now, this is the first conference since their election defeat in July. And Robert Jenrick, Tom Tugendhat, Kemi Badenoch and James Cleverly are busy drumming up support in the contest. Well, let's now cross over to Birmingham and speak with GB News' Deputy Political Editor, Tom Harwood. So, Tom, Rishi Sunak is getting ready to speak at some point. Give us an update on what's been going on there.
Yes, that's right. The queue, a surprisingly large queue, actually, to hear Rishi Sunak speak, has started going into that hall, so that will be coming up at around past. But I have to say, Nana, you might notice I'm no longer on the stand. I've travelled a long, long way. I actually haven't travelled that long away at all. This is about 3 feet away from where our stand is. Why? Because I've come to the stand of James Cleverly. He, of course, is in the vying to be the next Conservative Party leader, joint third place amongst MPs as things stand. But he's had a boost to his campaign today. The former Member of Parliament for Sutton and Cheam, Paul Scully, former London Minister, viewers might recognise, he has declared for James Cleverly. And I'm delighted to say that Paul Scully joins me now. Paul, why have you backed Team Cleverly?
Hi, Tom. Well, look, I think, James, I've looked at the race over the last few weeks, and James, to me, speaks to the widest group of people, not just the members, but the floating voters, the people that we need if we are actually going to bounce out of opposition back into government anytime soon. And that's really, really important. You shouldn't underestimate the guy for being nice, the way he can communicate, get complicated ideas across clearly, but he's a doer as well. He can get stuff done. And that's what I think the members and the public will respond to.
You're a former London minister. James is a former London deputy mayor. Is this all a bit too London?
No, I think, look, he represents a seat, albeit in the southeast, but he's travelled the country when he was chairman of the party, so he knows every part of and corner of our country. He's reached out there. But importantly, with London, though, of course, there's 9 million people, all with different aspirations, all with different viewpoints, all with different backgrounds. So it's an interesting melting pot to have grown up and learnt your political teeth to then transfer that to the rest of the country.
Now, of course, he's in third place as things stand. Only the final 2 get through to the membership vote. Can he still win this?
Yeah, because it's up to MPs now to look at not just who's going to be popular in a month's time, but who's going to take us on that journey. Labour Party, we can see them floundering. Doesn't mean everyone just suddenly turns to us. We're at the foothills of our recovery. They've got to look to people like James to say, who is it out of those 4 are going to do that job of continuing on that road to recovery? James can do that.
What's your betting? Who's going to be in the final 2?
Well, I think James has got a really good opportunity, and I don't know who that other person will be. It could be any one of the 4, frankly. It's quite an open race.
No, I think it is a very open race. What else is open is the stall behind you. Absolutely. What on earth is going on with this spinning wheel?
Well, look, everyone's got their merch, and you can be licking candidates' faces on lollipops. You can have wagging fingers. But what they're doing here, they've got the spinning wheel. You can win a prize, T-shirts or things. Or what I did earlier on, something that's really practical actually. It's a phone charger. Anyone that's stood in a conference for days on end knows that these things come in really handy. And of course, power to our members, because James understands how we need to make sure we revitalise the party membership up.
Are these not from all of the candidates various bribes and trinkets to buy support?
Let's just call them aid memoirs. They are there to remain relevant. What I found really exciting about this conference, it could have been a real graveyard after the result that we had earlier on in this year. But actually, the leadership has been in the forefront of people's minds, and actually, people have been vying around, talking about it, debating about which candidate they want in a really pragmatic, positive way. So that's been really interesting for me. I think the merch is just a bit of fun.
With all the freebies on offer, I'm frankly surprised Keir Starmer hasn't turned up to try and grab some.
These glasses do not say James Cleverly. These are my very own glasses.
And you paid for them yourself?
I did indeed.
Well, shall we have a go at spinning this wheel?
Come on in. Let's get in. Actually, you should spin this, shouldn't you?
Should I? Okay.
Go on. So ready to go.
Right. I was about to pass my microphone over to the wheel, but no, there we go.
What have you got?
I've got a totes bag. Okay. Marvellous. That's the big question. Is the prize available, or have they been...
Oh, there you go. See, this is what happened.
We've been absolutely run off our feet because we've got probably the funniest merch, we've got the wittiest merch, and the most useful as well. Because this is a boiler.
Talk me through 3 bits of funny merch.
Key stuff. This is for you're in the hall, you're getting a bit warm, you fold it into a fan. Where are my props? And then, right, you're absolutely
and
exhausted.
It cools you down, and James is fantastic.
Thank you.
And it says I'm a Cleverly fan on it.
Flume, if you want to get on the lug flume in Thorpe Park, hay core caps, and even the Swifty.
Even the Swifty bracelets. Well, there you go. That's everything at the James Cleverly stall. Back to you, Nana.
All right, thank you very much, Tom Harwood. Right, let's discuss this with the former co-deputy leader of Reform UK, Ben Habib. Ben Habib, thank you very much for joining me. Really good to talk to you. So the Conservative Party conference is underway. Do you think it's somewhat underwhelming? And your thoughts on the leadership candidates as well?
So, I mean, it's bound to be underwhelming, isn't it? They've just been thumped in the general election. It's almost a getting together of people who've lost, you know, so they're not going to be banging tables with joy. And of course, I think the 2 big things which we're facing, obviously the leadership, the contest, but also the heart and soul of the party. That, I think, is the bigger fight for the Conservatives. Where is the heart and soul of the party? And as much as I like Paul Scully, just in that interview there, Paul didn't really get it. He talked about James Cleverly appealing to a broad section of people, trying to reconnect with the electorate. But he didn't talk about the fact that the Conservative Party lost the last election, and the reason it governed so badly for the years before that is because it doesn't have a united ideology. The Conservative Party is a divided church. It's got those who are the One Nation wet Tories, effectively Europhiles, part of the Blair inheritance, large levels of regulation, high taxes, and ignoring the nation state, ignoring the British working class. That's the One Nation lot. And then you've got those who are more similar to me, I suppose, who want an independent, sovereign United Kingdom, enforce our borders. Jenrick claims to be one of those. Whether or not he is will remain to be determined. But it's that heart and soul over which the party ultimately will be fighting. And the approach that Paul Scully had of appealing to the broadest possible cross-section of the electorate as possible, that all works as long as the country doesn't face any significant hurdles. But the minute you face a hurdle like Brexit, and you've got to garner support and get the country over this difficult hurdle, in this case Brexit, you have to have a soul. You have to have an ideology in which you believe, because you've got to champion it and convey it to the British people. And that's where the Conservative Party has so largely failed. And actually, looking at the leadership candidates, with the exception of Jenrick, who I've got a question mark over his authenticity, with the exception of Jenrick and Badenoch, the other 2, I mean, what do they stand for?
Yeah, I hear you. A lot of people don't seem that interested in the Conservative Party. But right now, it's probably a good time for them, because you're seeing what's happening to the Labour Party as all the sort of scandal over the cash for clothes, which they say they perfectly honestly declared these things, or declared them. I would probably take away the word honestly. But where do you think that leaves the Labour Party as well? And obviously you've got Rosie Duffield leaving the party as well.
Yeah. So what I would like to see at the dispatch box, just very quickly finishing on the Conservative thing, what I would like to see at the dispatch box is a real combative, Conservative-minded set of arguments from someone who can be articulate, erudite, deliver the speeches. And, there are only 2 candidates for that. It's Jenrick or Badenoch. And it's not really about policy. It's about the arguments they can make at the dispatch box, because they've got to stand up to Starmer. And as far as Starmer is concerned, coming back to your thing, if you've got a Prime Minister, Rupert Lowe, my friend, put this exceptionally well. He said, if you've got a prime minister who can't even buy his own socks, he needs to be taken out of office. And what this has revealed, it doesn't come close to the £800,000 that Boris Johnson spent on refurbishing Downing Street, and I think he got the loan from a mate of his. This is relatively small beer, but it shows the same embedded cronyism, a preparedness for moral corruption, to allow someone like Lord Ali not just to finance the Prime Minister, but the Deputy Prime Minister, her boyfriend in a flat in New York, the socks, as I mentioned, glasses, Chancellor of the Exchequer, let's not forget Chancellor of the Exchequer. All of this is symptomatic of the same old Tory cronyism against which the Labour Party used to rail. And they've lost their moral authority. Rosie Duffield, you've got to take your hat off to Rosie Duffield. What a fantastic lady, early on coming out, declaring her position, sticking by, resigning her position in the Labour Party. Terrific. And I hope we see more of that. I hope we see more honest, principled politicians. That's what this country needs. Ideologically motivated MPs who will stick to their guns and fight for what they believe is in the interests of this country.
Yeah, well, it does. I'm not so sure we've got that. Remember the two-child benefit cap? The ones who didn't agree, they lost their seats or they lost the whip. So then, when it came to the other vote, a lot of them abstained with regard to the winter fuel payments. So I don't know where we go with this. A lot of them are career politicians, and it looks to me that we've lost the conviction. Thank you very much, Ben Habib. Really good to talk to you. He was the former deputy leader of Reform UK. Right, next, the interview. Lawyer, broadcaster and futurist Andrew Eborn joins me.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
My next guest is a composer and film director whose musical journey began at the tender age of 4.5 when he started playing the piano. Under the tutelage of luminaries such as Sir George Benjamin and Sir Harrison Birtwistle, he has honed his craft, primarily grounding himself in the classical world. He's written music in sets of composition in the 24 major and minor keys of the chromatic scale, producing an album which is accompanied by 24 videos, and it's called 24. I'm joined now by Fabio D'Andrea. Fabio, great to see you. Tell me a little bit, I'm a layman when it comes to music, tell me a little bit about how a composer chooses a key and what it means to the composer to have chosen the key.
Sure. Well, I think every musical key, and there's 24 of them, major and minor, they have their own feel. So you could play a piece in, say, C major, which is normally regarded as the simple key, it's all the white notes on the piano. But if you play that piece, say, in A-flat major, it's going to have a very different feel. So I decided to create this project, 24 pieces, again, looking back at our traditions and the history of what composers have done in the past, especially in regards to piano music, and explore every key, see if I could bring out the emotion that you feel from that actual key itself.
Were you fonder of some than others? I imagine, for example, you're not so fond of C because it's too straightforward.
Actually, no, I love all of them. And that's the beauty of music. Every key has its own feel. And some keys are associated with different feelings. So, for example, C major has actually been historically associated with victory. It's quite a victorious feel about it. I love D-flat major. That's quite mellow. But every key has its own special feeling. And sometimes something will just sound different in that one key, and it's meant to be in that key. So for me, this has been a whole exploration of that.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Jubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon. 22 minutes after 5 o'clock. I'm Nana Akua. I clashed with the sofa. I've just realised we're live on TV, online and on digital radio, and it's now time for this week's interview. Andrew Eborn, who is he? He's a multifaceted professional serving as an international lawyer and a business strategist, a broadcaster and a futurist, whatever that means. What does that mean? He's widely recognised for his expertise in intellectual property, media and technology, helping businesses navigate the challenges of changing markets and maximising their potential. Andrew is also a prominent social and political commentator, contributing to major platforms like the BBC, Sky, CNN, and of course here at GBNews as well. As a media presenter, Andrew leads various shows and podcasts, such as The Muckrakers on TNT Radio. Have you heard of that? Have you heard any more? Do you want to hear more? Or have I told you everything you need to know? Andrew Eborn joins me now.
It's a delight to be here, as always.
So, Andrew, we see you on lots of different channels, but
Yes.
nobody realises that you've actually had quite a big career and you've worked with some massive stars. So talk to me about your, where were you born?
Yeah.
Where did you grow
I was born
up?
at a very early age, interestingly, in North London. But what happened, my early career, my background is as an intellectual property lawyer. And what I now do is work across the IP value chain. So everything from the creation of formats. I have a company with the people who created Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, and we're churning out loads more of those formats around the world and licensing those. We also get involved with productions, so working with people like Duran Duran and Alison Jackson. We did their latest video, which was a glorious thing there. But also I help people make lots of money. So everything about intellectual property, and the great thing about intellectual property...
What does it mean? Some people hear intellectual property and they don't know what it means.
I'll tell you exactly what it means. It's rather like physical property is like your house, your sofa and wonderful things like that. Intellectual property is anything that you create. So it can be a copyright. For example, if you write words, you do a little doodle, do a drawing. That basically is your intellectual property. You've also got things like trademarks and passing off and sporting rights. So I help companies basically exploit those rights, license those rights. I'll give you an example. I took Peter Rabbit, for example, the brand. We took that over to Japan and did the very first deals licensing for that. It's now a multi-million-dollar business in Japan across things like merchandise on TV and various other things. I also work things like sporting rights. So with Formula One, I again negotiated the rights for Japan and also did the very first merchandising deals and also things like computer game rights, which weren't being exploited. So I helped negotiate the deal with Bernie Ecclestone, as it then was.
Wow.
And what happened is they weren't being exploited. But there was a big thing in Japan about people playing these games, and there were all sorts of pirate games on the market, like Ayrton Henna, as opposed to doing the proper names. Exactly. So we tidied up the whole market, and the television company at that stage, called Fuji Television, basically said, look, we understand Japan. Could you help us exploit the rest of the world? So I then became their agent for selling those rights around the world.
Gosh, crikey. So you've done quite a bit. A lot of people won't know that. But let's take it back to where were you born?
I was born in North London. North London, in Barnet. 89 Station Road. The blue plaque is there already.
Is it?
Yeah. Yeah,
true.
right.
You wish.
Never let the truth stand in the way of a good story. But basically, they then moved down to the south coast, near a place called Bracklesham Bay, where my mother basically was rescuing lots of animals. We've had 18 horses, and she would rescue cats and dogs and one sheep and a goat and things like that. And what happens is I grew up on the south coast before being sent off to boarding school. And then I went to study law at Durham University. And after that, I came down to become a barrister. And I was very lucky because we managed to get a scholarship in central London, in the Temple. And they gave me a free flat and a Batman gown and a wig, and basically started practicing intellectual property.
I see. Now, you've obviously been very successful at it. You've done quite a bit of work around it. What's been the most... I think the biggest thing, your biggest highlight, you'd say to date?
I met everybody from big politicians like Bill Clinton, Maggie Thatcher, to all the current ones as well. I think my favourite, however, if you've ever seen the movie Lost in Translation, it stars Bill Murray. And what it does is these big stars, A-list stars, go to Japan to promote products. And the reason they go there is twofold. Is one, there's a lot of money to be made. And secondly, people don't see it outside of Japan. So I've taken lots of celebrities, basically based on the agency that I do a lot of work for, still do work for after all these years, called Dentsu. And what happened is I did a big campaign with Stephen Hawking, as he then was.
All right, well, hold on 1 second. We'll come back to you, but let's cross line now to the Tory party conference where the former Prime Minister Rishi Sunak is speaking.
There he is.
Thank you, everyone. It's great to see you all. Absolutely great. And there is a brilliant buzz at this conference, isn't there? It's fantastic. Terrific energy. Thousands of you here. We've got members, councillors, MPs, businesses. In fact, it's such a hot ticket, I'm surprised that Keir Starmer hasn't asked somebody to buy him one. Now, I want to start by saying thank you. Thank you for everything that you do for our party and the support that you've always given Akshar and me. You all worked tirelessly during the election campaign, and I'm only sorry that I could not deliver the result that your efforts deserved. And as you know, this is my final conference as leader. A new leader of our party will be announced in just 5 weeks' time. So I'm not delivering the usual leader's speech, and instead, this week, the stage will be for the 4 leadership candidates. This conference should be about their message to you, about the future of our party and our country. One of them will be our next leader, and this is their time to show you what they will bring to the role, to inspire you, and it is important that they have the opportunity to do that without distraction. But I did want to be here to say a proper thank you to you all. You, the members, are the spine of our party. You will be central to us winning again. It is you who take our message to the country. It is you who are on the doorsteps in all weathers, and it is you who embody our party's values. But you are not only the backbone of our country, our party, but our communities too. You know that the strength of our society is not measured by how much government spends, by what we do for each other. You lead the little platoons that do so much to make our country great. Now, I know the election result was hard. We were all devastated to lose so many good Conservatives. Now, of course, we need to learn the lessons of this defeat. We did not get everything right in office. No government ever does, and we do now need to reflect on that. But we should not forget what we have achieved these last 14 years. We must not, and I know we will not, let Keir Starmer rewrite history. The last Labour government left us a note saying that there was no money left. We left them inflation back at target, mortgage rates falling, and the fastest growing economy in the G7. When I became Prime Minister, I was determined to restore stability to our economy, and we did. In the election, we warned that Labour would tax more and borrow more, because we all know that socialists always run out of other people's money. Something, by the way, that Lord Ali is already finding out the hard way.
I think I've got it.
But looking back over the last 40 years, we Conservatives made our country fairer and stronger. We steered this nation through the biggest challenges we have faced since the Second World War.
Okay, great.
The first pandemic in over 100 years. The return of war to the European continent. The biggest spike in global energy prices in half a century. But despite having to contend with all those challenges, we left office with 4 million more people in work. That's 4 million people having their lives transformed, 4 million more people knowing the confidence, security and purpose that a job brings. And we Conservatives, under David, took the difficult but necessary decisions to repair the public finances and control the national debt. And that meant that when COVID hit, we could support people and businesses with furlough, provide record funding to the NHS, and deliver the fastest vaccine rollout in the world anywhere, my friends. We know that it is business and free enterprise, not the state, that will provide the growth and dynamism that our country needs. That is why we cut taxes, so British companies could invest, innovate and grow. We raised the income tax threshold to £12,500, lifting hundreds of thousands of people out of tax altogether. And in just the last year, Jeremy delivered a £900 tax cut for those in work, because we believe that hard work should always be rewarded. We also know that a good education is the best way to spread opportunity and create a more prosperous society. So led by Michael, we took on the blob, its failed ideology, the soft bigotry of low expectations, and reformed our education system. The result? Our children are now the best readers in the Western world. We have given a whole generation opportunities that they would not have otherwise had. And our country will reap the benefit of those reforms for generations to come, and that is a legacy we Conservatives should be proud of. We all believe in the dignity of work, that those who can work should work. It's not morally right or economically sustainable to just park people on out-of-work benefits, out of sight, out of mind. So, led by Ian, we reformed our welfare system to make sure that work always pays. And we Conservatives don't always wear our hearts on our sleeves. We don't parade our consciences. We don't virtue signal. But we are compassionate. And we know that true compassion means tackling problems, not just emoting about them. In our time in office, we reduced absolute poverty, we reduced child poverty, we reduced pensioner poverty, and that is a record we can all be proud of. And we Conservatives also believe that those who have worked hard all their lives and contributed so much to our country deserve security and respect in retirement. That's why we introduced the triple lock, to ensure that the insult of Labour's 75p pension rise could never be repeated. And that's why we will continue to oppose Rachel Reeves' cruel decision to take the winter fuel allowance away from pensioners on as little as £13,000, while handing highly paid train drivers almost a £10,000 train payroll. You know as I know, the last few months have shown, it is only us Conservatives who will stand up for Britain's pensioners. We strengthened our united kingdom. With the forces of separatism now in retreat, we sent salmon and sturgeon home to think again. And I know that Russell Finlay will be a great new leader of the Scottish Conservatives.
That is Conservative leader. He's obviously still the leader. Rishi Sunak addressing party members in Birmingham. He thanked everybody at the start and he said that we will make our country great. We should not forget what we've achieved with the Conservatives over the last 14 years, and reminded us that the Labour Party left that note, there's no money left. But what he said in exchange, he left the Labour Party was falling inflation, a growing economy, and the fastest growing economy in the G7. And he did make that little quip, which was quite funny. Lord Ali is finding out that they always run out of other people's money. But he did talk about necessary decisions that the Conservatives made to restore national debt. And he also talked about that fast rolling out of the vaccine and the reduction of child poverty and pensioner poverty. And, of course, the cruel decision that he referred to, Rachel Reeves' winter fuel payment removal from pensioners. So he's obviously still speaking. We'll catch up with some of that later. But first, if you just tuned in, welcome. This is GB News, 36 minutes after 5 o'clock. I'm Nana Akua. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. Still to come, the Great British Debate this hour. And I'm asking, is this the beginning of the end for Sir Keir Starmer? You'll hear the thoughts of my panel, broadcaster and journalist Danny Kelly, and also GB News' senior political commentator Nigel Nelson.
Good afternoon, welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. We've got an east-west split in the weather today, but it's going to be turning increasingly unsettled with heavy spells of rain and some strong winds. And this is all to do with an area of low pressure out towards the west. We have a squeeze in those isobars as well, indicating some strong winds, and we do have a Met Office wind warning in force for gusts of 50 to 60 miles per hour across parts of Wales and the southwest of England, accompanied by some heavy spells of rainfall. Further towards the north into Scotland and Northern Ireland, generally seeing a largely cloudy night to start Monday morning, but a mild start with generally lows of 10 or 11 degrees. So a damp start to Monday morning. We've got outbreaks of heavy rain, and we also have a rain warning that comes into force across much of the southern parts of England and into Wales. That rain continues to push into parts of the Midlands and northern eastern parts of England as well. Cloudier skies to start across parts of Northern Ireland with outbreaks of rain here. Across parts of Scotland, though, we may see some brightness, but on the whole, it's still quite a cloudy picture with some spots of rain. So through Monday morning, that rain continues to push its way north and eastwards, lingers for a time across northern parts of Wales, into North Midlands and into Yorkshire. So we could see some further disruption here with possible flooding as well. Towards the south of that, turning drier with some bright skies developing, and across parts of Scotland as well. We may hold on to some sunshine, but on the whole, it's a largely cloudy day. So through Monday evening, that rain continues across much of northern parts of England, really holding on across parts of Lincolnshire as well. But as we go through Tuesday, Wednesday and Thursday, it should be turning drier and also brighter, highs of 18.
The king of breakfast TV is back. That's right, Britain's favourite TV host, Eamon Holmes, returns to Britain's hottest breakfast programme. Breakfast every day from 6 a.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon. Welcome if you just tuned in. It's just coming up to 39 minutes after 5 o'clock. I'm Nana Akua. We are live on TV, online, and on digital radio. This is GB News, and it's time now for the Great British Debate this hour. I'm asking, is this the beginning of the end for Sir Keir Starmer? Now, the Prime Minister has been in the spotlight since coming into power with controversy. Well, it started off with riots, didn't it? Surrounding wardrobe gate, freebies and working from home. Well, not really, not his own home. And this comes as Rosie Duffield has quit the party, and a new poll from Opinion shows Sir Keir Starmer's net approval rating is down a whopping 30%. So for the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, is this the beginning of the end for Sir Keir Starmer? Well, joining me to discuss my panel, political commentator Nigel Nelson, broadcaster and journalist Danny Kelly, and Andrew Eborn. He's still here.
Can't get rid of me.
Yes, with his Book of Failure.
Oh, the Book of Failure, this is the one. We're going to talk about this a little bit, but this is where Sir Keir Starmer, the new chapter, this is the second edition with a foreword by Mike Reid, my good mate, but Sir Keir can appear in the third edition. We'll make that make sense. You're right. Basically, the reason I did the book was so many people talk about success, but very rarely about the failure that leads to that success. And I always say that if necessity is the mother of invention, well, failure is the father of success. But Sir Keir, what a dreadful start. I'm talking about hypocrisy. You're turning round where he criticised, you might remember Boris Johnson, all about the curtains and the wallpaper, and Carrie doesn't live here anymore, and they had this thing about interior resigns. Well, now it is. Basically, it's a two-tier Keir, and his free gear is outrageous. The hypocrisy is what stinks the most. And you're looking at that sort of basis. It's now the Frocky Horror Show. That's how it all started, didn't it? With the dresses. And the reason he has to spend thousands of pounds on spectacles is so he can see that hypocrisy.
Yeah, well, he needs to have a look at it, because perhaps I don't see why he can't see it. Nigel Nelson.
No, it's not the end. I mean, he's
not think?
No, it's been a bad beginning, I think, is the way to put it. That the freebies have been a misstep. He has promised, in fact, an independent ethics and integrity commission. That was one of the things that was promised in the election manifesto. I'd quite like to see him introduce that fairly shortly, so they can decide whether some of the things he's been up to and the other cabinet ministers have been up to is in order.
But it depends who he puts in it, right? Because if he's got the choice of who goes in it, then the sort of people he's going to put in it, probably Sue Gray.
Yeah.
Well, you know,
it's meant to be independent.
Yeah,
so
but
it won't be anyone from government.
Well, you know, but the people that they put in it, we end up with all these cronies, Labour cronies, which end up just, you know, just supporting everything. Danny Kelly.
I think it's too premature to suggest it's the end.
The beginning of the end.
The beginning of the. I think it's too early to suggest it's the beginning of the end. If Rosie Duffield called a by-election, I think Rosie Duffield should do the honourable thing and say, I'm stepping down and I want a by-election, because I don't think Labour would win, and I think that Keir Starmer has built foundations on very shaky ground. He's peed off the union backers about the old age pensioners and their pensions. They're not happy about the winter fuel allowance. Yeah. Rosie Duffield, who overturned a massive Tory majority to give Labour their first victory in this constituency, I think she should have the courage of her conviction. If she is so principled in life, she should call a by-election. I don't think Labour would win it. Now, if Labour didn't win it and the Tories or Reform or even Rosie Duffield as an independent, I think that foundation gets even shakier. Yeah. And I still think it's too premature, but I think in 12 months, 18 months' time, unless things dramatically improve and pick up and the British people feel that there's a difference.
So Rosie Duffield by-election, maybe Lord Ali could buy an election for Sir Keir Starmer. He's bought everything else. Yeah. No, the reality is that trust comes in on foot but leaves on horseback. We were given all these promises during the election. People voted for them. We're not going to increase taxes, not on the ordinary working man, whatever that means. Well, we're realising that virtually anybody's not ordinary or working on that sort of premise, because they're all going to be taxed. Taking away the winter fuel allowance when the same time that you're announcing all these thousands of pounds spent on these freebies, it's abhorrent. The optics of it are absolutely appalling.
The optics are bad. No, as we keep saying, I think that they certainly are. And that's why he's absolutely right to say he won't do it anymore. He shouldn't have done it in the first place.
Lessons have been learned.
He shouldn't have done it in the first place, and having done it, he should have come out very quickly and announced absolutely everything. And said, right, this is what I've had.
Did you see him, though, in the interview with Beth Rigby, where he didn't even seem remorseful about any of it at all?
No,
That is a real problem as well. You've gone and done that. People are freezing and bills are going up and everything's rising, and you're being told about it and asking whether you can see the optics. He didn't appear to understand.
No, I mean, the point he was making there is that he hasn't actually done anything wrong in the sense that he's not broken any rules. I think that's the...
Morally, I think he has.
Morally, that's certainly a judgment you can make. But as far as the rules go, he didn't break them. He was a bit late in actually declaring them.
Well, isn't that a breach of the rules,
Isn't that breaking the rules? If you're late in declaring
You should actually,
Yeah, so he has broken the rules. Yes, he has. Members of the jury, I tell you. So he's broken the rules.
He's broken the rules.
And the rules are there for a reason.
Yeah, they are.
And he broke them, yes?
Well, he was a late declaration because the rules weren't clear.
Oh, come on. There's another clip of him explaining the rules very clearly to Boris Johnson.
28 days.
He knows the rules. He broke the rules. Not only that, a bit of subterfuge going on when he did that interview at Lord Ali's house, where he put his picture there, told everybody to stay at home. Listen, we're running out of time. Thank you, Andrew Eborn.
Pleasure to see you.
The Book of Failures.
Buy the book.
Book of Failures. Sounds fabulous. Nigel Nelson and also Danny Kelly. Right, coming up next, clip debate. Some very interesting decisions on the catwalk from this model. Find out what happens next.
Oh, my.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Meghan Markle is finding it very, very difficult to recruit staff for her lifestyle brand, which is called American Riviera Orchard. There's a mouthful for you. Apart from a jam gifted to influencers earlier this year, the brand is yet to launch any products.
Well, let's speak to our US royal and showbiz reporter, Kinsey Schofield. Good morning to you, Kinsey. Who's going to want that gig?
I mean, there are rumors that Netflix has said, allow us to manage the retail strategy. If she can't manage to find a CEO or somebody willing to work with her, Netflix sees an opportunity there.
To be an influencer, people have got to want to be like you. Do people like her?
I mean, this has been her biggest issue in the last few years, is realizing that there's been a shift when it comes to their popularity. Harry and Meghan believed their own hype when they said on that Netflix series that the reason they were ostracized was because they were much more popular than the British royals. They were more popular than Prince William, more popular than Princess Kate. And their popularity has declined immensely. And now they are desperate to win people over again.
Most people have to be liked or admired, and I put it to you, Kinsey, she'll have difficulty on both fronts.
Netflix is not going to renew this contract. I mean, they are fearful that this cooking show, this polo show, will not connect with the audience. And now they want us to believe that Meghan is at home cooking all this banana bread and having her best friend Chrissy Teigen over for scones. People aren't going to buy it.
GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Well, I've been teasing this clip throughout the entire show, so it's now time for clip-bait. I thought we'd have a bit of fun towards the end because we've been talking a lot of politics. So let's show you the first initial clip. It's a model. She's a model. We're going to show you the clip there. She grabs the bar, lifts her legs, does the V. What do you think happens next? I'm going to ask my panel. Danny Kelly, what do you think happens next?
Does she release a really loud... you-know-what? A loud fart or something?
I think you can say that now, but if you can't, apologies for that language. Right, Nigel Nelson.
Does she sort of do a double somersault and land on a trampoline or something like that?
Interesting, interesting. Right, well, for the viewers at home and those on the radio, I'll talk you through exactly what happens, because I've been teasing it. Let me play you the full thing, and you can take a guess. Right, so here it comes. As you can see, various models falling off the catwalk, various catwalkers having stumbles. There even appears to be some sort of paddling pool. And the lady climbing, she grabs the bar, it snaps. And then another one sort of falls over on her shoes. So she grabs the bar and she falls off. I want to see that again. It's just so good, isn't it?
Who's the fellow with the glasses and the sombrero?
Well, he's looking at it. I think that's hilarious. Is there any chance? I want to see that again. I can't help it. Not the full thing.
It looks a bit painful there, doesn't it?
Well, it looks funny to me. I thought it was very funny. But anyway, so she grabs the bar and, of course, the bar snaps. Then she lands on her behind and comes crashing downwards with her heels. Right now, it's time, Supplement Sunday. The part of the show where my panel take me through some of the stories that are hitting the headlines. Joining me, senior political commentator Nigel Nelson, journalist and broadcaster Danny Kelly. All right, I'm going to start with you, Nigel. Your story, please.
Yeah, this is from the Sunday Mirror, and it's HMP Woodhill in Buckinghamshire, which is one of Britain's most violent jails. And trusted lags have been given T-shirts with peace promoter emblazoned on the back. And apparently that is calming disorder in the jail. Also, the added advantage is they can't hide any tricks up their sleeves.
Oh, very good. I can't believe that would work. Would that work?
Well, give it a chance.
Danny Kelly.
Right. Peter, People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals, have urged the Met Police, in fact, police forces across the UK, to stop using dogs. You know, for riot control and things like that after the riots in the summer, and a number of dogs were injured, poor things, and they have no choice. A bobby has a choice whether they want to be a copper. You know, they sign up and they take an oath. A dog doesn't. You know, they're trained to be aggressive and to be hostile in certain situations. And Peter, People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals say that enough is enough. But the thing is, how are you going to control a baying mob lobbing bricks at old Bill? One of the things that you have is a dog.
Yeah, it looks like the police dogs actually enjoy themselves.
I thought so.
I appreciate that some of them get injured, but they're then retired after that, and they have quite a pleasant retirement, as far as I can gather.
Yeah, but they have that switch that means that they can potentially, they have a propensity to be extremely violent, because that's bred into them, that's trained into them, forgive me, not bred. And it doesn't matter how old they get, living at home with them.
I don't know. I think if they want to and they show willing, it's fine. But yeah, they do get hurt, and it's a bit sad, isn't it, when they do? Well, listen, this is my one. Sober freshers reject booze in favour of spas and hummus. Oh, how boring. So basically, universities hold teetotal events now for newcomers and freshers who turn their backs on alcohol and nights out. What a boring bunch. When I was at university, I was literally... And I'm not condoning saying that anyone should do this, but I was probably drunk every night. It was...
But isn't that the point of university?
Of course, then I realised I had to pass the exam, so then I sobered up quickly when I had to the following years. But the first year, when you're a fresher and you join, you want to have fun and enjoy yourself, I suppose. But they don't equate having a drink with a bit of fun.
Well, yeah, I mean, especially when you're first going to university, it just seems to me that's the idea of the place. Go there, have some fun, and do a little bit of work along the way, just pass the exams.
But that's interesting, because there's a story in the last 6 months that young people are being turned off themselves by alcohol. Fewer and fewer young people are actually picking up booze.
Do you know why I think that is? Because I was the generation of the people who were drinking in the streets. We're now the mums of those children who watched us on TV. Yeah. Do you remember when that was on TV and there's lots of women really drunk?
Throwing up everywhere.
Yeah, that's
right. So you think you've put off the new generation?
I think so. Yeah, definitely, because I was definitely one of those. But listen, so on today's show, I've been asking for our Great British Debate, which Tory candidate gets your vote? And according to our Twitter poll, 44.6% of you voted for Kemi Badenoch, 40% of you said Robert Jenrick, 9.5% of you said James Cleverly, and 6% of you went for Tom Tugendhat. And one person in the comments did suggest Farage, but that might be tricky, since he's not a Conservative. Well, he is probably a true Conservative, but he's not a member of the Tory party. Huge thank you to my panel, GB News senior political commentator Nigel Nelson and journalist broadcaster Danny Kelly, and a massive thank you to you at home for your company. Thank you so much. I look forward to seeing you same time, same place on Saturday. I'll leave you with the weather. Enjoy. Take care. Have a good week.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News. Good afternoon, welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. We've got an east-west split in the weather today, but it's going to be turning increasingly unsettled with heavy spells of rain and some strong winds. And this is all to do with an area of low pressure out towards the west. We have a squeeze in those isobars as well, indicating some strong winds, and we do have a Met Office wind warning in force for gusts of 50 to 60 miles per hour across parts of Wales and the southwest of England, accompanied by some heavy spells of rainfall. Further towards the north into Scotland and Northern Ireland, generally seeing a largely cloudy night to start Monday morning, but a mild start with generally lows of 10 or 11 degrees. So a damp start to Monday morning. We've got outbreaks of heavy rain, and we also have a rain warning that comes into force across much of the southern parts of England and into Wales. That rain continues to push into parts of the Midlands and northern eastern parts of England as well. Cloudier skies to start across parts of Northern Ireland with outbreaks of rain here. Across parts of Scotland, though, we may see some brightness, but on the whole, it's still quite a cloudy picture with some spots of rain. So through Monday morning, that rain continues to push its way north and eastwards, lingers for a time across northern parts of Wales into North Midlands and into Yorkshire. So we could see some further disruption here with possible flooding as well. Towards the south of that, turning drier with some bright skies developing, and across parts of Scotland as well. We may hold on to some sunshine, but on the whole, it's a largely cloudy day. So through Monday evening, that rain continues across much of northern parts of England, really holding on across parts of Lincolnshire as well. But as we go through Tuesday, Wednesday and Thursday, it should be turning drier and also brighter, highs of 18. That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
They There's still plenty of time to grab your chance to win a whopping £36,000 cash in the Great British Giveaway. That's like having 3,000...
Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates. You're comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister.
Which is it? Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained.
I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday.
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
The king of breakfast TV is back. That's right, Britain's favourite TV host, Eamon Holmes, returns to Britain's hottest breakfast programme. Breakfast every day from 6 a.m. Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good evening, I'm Sophia Wenslow with your headlines at 6 o'clock. Rishi Sunak has